Max Verstappen back into first place. They want to make that move, but here goes Gustavo Ariel diving to the inside. Gael Valero looking for the move over Archie Neumann. He has it.
And you can just see Peter Zuba pushing Florian Labigra right over.
Oh, Chris Allen, he does make that pass.
Gael Valero doing his best on the outside, gets sideways, and no, the teammates crash. We had the number 11 going right there. 3 wide out there in the middle of the field. Through the mountain straight now, going 3 wide.
Oh my word, that is probably one of the best shots of the entire season.
Towards the Niki Lauda curve, bumping and banging and into the wall. That is a horrible crash.
2 wide now, door to door. Max Verstappen to Vanderdantis. Max Verstappen able to safely rejoin. Slots it right in front of another car.
Carousel immediately, he gets punted off. That was Saavedra. Aguilar, he's gone off, he's been tapped, and he's into the barriers. Oh, the rejoin. Oh, no.
Dean. Oh, Pedro, Dean.
Oh, Chris Allen does have the inside track for the Swiss left. If he's able to make that pass happen, he might be able to cut away Victorino. He does make that pass, and he makes it clean as they come into the right hand, and this is it. Chris Allen seizes the opportunity and makes it. And just as the end, the rain comes to put a pin onto the end of the race, and Chris Allen takes it.
Miranda Peter Zuba into the wall.
It's actually Valero. Valero's actually gone off into the barriers coming up to the cutting.
David Taub making his way back up, has already climbed 7 positions.
Oh, it's supposed to be soon there. Sandy goes up.
So right now, this is going to be where it's going to get shaken up. David Toth passes them while they are in the pit through the mountain straight now, going 3 wide.
Oh my word, that is probably one of the best shows of the entire season.
So we have 3-way battle going to the most dangerous turn of the mountain. Up the mountain, we have contact right there. These guys going absolutely crazy. It's going to come down to the final corner, Murray's corner. Who is going to have to lead? We may have a drag race to the finish line on our hands, folks. You see David Toth right now going into the pit lane.
We go racing for heat number 1 here in Austria. Over AMX 20 in towards the Niki Lauda curve, bumping and banging and into the wall. That is a horrible crash. That's a huge lunge from Gaston Calabi, and he's made contact with, I believe, oh wow, it's a chaotic moment here. And slipstream in front for either car, and you could just see Petosova pushing Florian Lamigra right over.
Here we go then, Dallara, he looks left, he looks right, he's going to the right hand side, which is the inside going 8 to 10 3.
Here it is. This is the crucial moment in this race. It's looking like it's only going one way. David Toth is going to take the race lead. Heading into the second half of the season, the Hungarian of David Toth has driven a masterclass here with the early pit stop. Not the ideal strategy, but an ideal race winner and an excellent performance.
To save our home, we must travel through the gateway to find new energy.
The skies are clear and the sun is out. That's right, folks. Your eyes are not deceiving you today. We're headed to one of Ohio's favorite dirt tracks. That's right, folks. Limaland Motorsports Park out in the street stocks today. We decided we're going to be changing things up constantly, but today we're going to have our inaugural dirt oval race for the season. It's definitely going to be a bit chaotic. Format's a little bit different than what some people may be used to from some oval races. I am Kevin. Welcome back to Season 6 of the AMX Global Sim Racing World Champion alongside Damon. Damon, we've done oval races before in the past, but nothing quite like this.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think this might be the first dirt race that AMX has had in quite a long time. And I know a lot of these drivers are very, very much used to the tarmac, so it'll be interesting to see how they deal with the dirt instead.
So we have a lot of drivers out there today, used to the road courses, even used to a bit more of the oval on the asphalts, the large super speedway. So it's going to be interesting, especially we're going to be putting them through their paces today. But before we get into checking on our drivers, make sure everyone follow all of our social medias on the screen, as well as head over to amxrace.com, get the full schedule, get up, signed up as well if you want to come and do some fun races, especially like today, AMX ZERO. It's going to be a good time. But like I mentioned, before we check on our qualifying, we have a few things to go over for our race format. AMX ZERO out here today in the dirt oval. We've been out here since September 7th this season, going all the way through November 17th with a season prize pool of $11,000 plus next level racing gear. Today's format goes as follows. For AMX ZERO, we have a 15-minute qualifier with a top 15 reverse grid, followed by heat 1 of 20 minutes, followed by another top 15 reverse grid into that final heat number 2 of 20 minutes. For all of our drivers out there, driver cams are required if you are participating in the race, and payouts are done in balances over $100 paid out every single month. So once you hit $100 in your account, expect that money headed your way. We're here every single Saturday and Sunday this season, so make sure and join us. Get signed up anytime to race over at amxrace.com. And like I mentioned, every single weekend, starting on Saturdays, we got AMX ZERO at 5:50 p.m. GMT, followed by AMX 5 right after at 7:10 p.m. Every other Sunday, we got a doubleheader of AMX 10, 5:50 p.m. on Sundays, followed by that second race at 7:30 p.m. And every other week, we have our mini enduro races, the AMX 15 class, starting at 5:50 p.m. So like I said, make sure you can see the whole schedule. I know there's a few races on the track, a few races on the calendar I'm very excited to get, so make sure to go over there, get involved in the races, or just see where we're going to be headed to next. Our prize pool for AMX ZERO races goes as follows. It is going to be the same prizes from qualifying all the way through heats 1 and 2, with first place walking away with $5, second place getting $4, third $3, all the way down into 15th place. With heat number 1 and heat number 2, the fastest lap setter will get an extra $1 tacked on, with a total prize pool per race of $73. Like we said, Damon, it's going to be a good one today out here on the dirt oval. I know it's going to be a bit chaotic if we can count on anything.
Yeah, definitely, Kevin. And as we mentioned at the start, we are here in Ohio, Limaland Motorsports Park, also known to locals as Northwest Ohio's quarter mile of thunder. Track is owned and operated by the University of Northern Ohio, and they do racing quite often, every Friday night actually. Opened all the way back in 1935, so this track is about 89 years old, close to 90. And yeah, you may be wondering, this course is very, very short. The cars that we will be taking along here will finish a lap in about 15 to 16 seconds. So very quick ones. But we have a lot of racing to deal with. And as the cars, here they are. This is, of course, the dirt street stock cars. Lots of power going to the rear wheels, quite heavy, quite sturdy, fully rear wheel drive, manual gearbox. So You know how we deal on dirt, always want four-wheel drive. You don't get that here. It's full rear-wheel drive, so throttle modulation and being able to conserve momentum is going to be paramount to stay ahead in these races. And you can see it on the screen right now as they're drifting around the corner. That is definitely the fastest way to get around a dirt oval. And we'll just see how the drivers be able to handle it. So, take it away, Kevin.
Absolutely. Thanks, Damon. And great place to start for a lot of these drivers. Like I said, the dirt stocks, of course, being one of those cars that you get whenever you first join iRacing. So it's definitely one of the pinnacles, one of the entry levels to all of stock racing out here. A lot of people, both in real life and in the Sims, starting out on the dirt, getting very comfortable, getting what they can out of these cars. I mean, although it's 425 horsepower, that's still, can't believe it, not the highest horsepower that we got out there. But like I said, entry level dirt racing. But don't let that fool you, because as we can see now, these drivers already setting some blazing lap times. Speaking of lap times, everyone out there watching live at home, feel free to scan the QR code that pops up on screen from time to time. Check out all the live timing data that we have up here in the booth. But right now, we're on board with Santiago Barrios, who's currently sitting in that second place position, sitting down about a 14.73 qualifying lap time so far. So like I said, out here, a lot of these drivers, one thing that we do different from the ovals compared to whenever we're out at a road race is we let these drivers definitely go out here, and especially such a small play as there, we see Santiago just absolutely climbing the wall. I just know we're going to see some of that going on throughout the races. But like I was saying, out here the qualifying, it is a single car on the track at a time versus the road races. We typically have all the cars out there. So a little bit more fair out here for the oval races. And now back on board with Gerardo Encinas, who's just bested up his lap time now, just sitting under 15 seconds, currently right in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, and as we mentioned before, driving on dirt presents its own set of challenges compared to oval racing. You can see just how much these drivers will be fighting against their cars in order to get the best times around this track. And you can see right now they're sticking to the outside lane, trying to drift as close to the wall as possible, but being very careful not to hit them. Mostly trying not to hit them. Inevitably, this will happen, especially when we have so many cars on the grid this time around. We have 16 drivers and a very, very small oval, less than half a kilometer long. This is going to be pretty chaotic, I would say.
Yeah, so that too. So typically a lot of people out there that are keen to oval racing. For the dirt ovals, there's a lot of series out there run-in heat laps. So kind of similar. I've seen someone ask earlier if we're doing rallycross. No, unfortunately, we are not doing rallycross today. But hey, like I said, I don't know. If you guys ask for it enough, we might have to just kind of check that out for one of these races. But back to what's going on out here today. So typically, a lot of dirt oval races do have a similar heat format going through. I know just recently we had the Knoxville Nationals in the iRacing officials. So anyone who watched those may say, hey, what are we going to do today? Today, 91 laps. Probably going to be a bit chaotic. No full course cautions out here today, folks. So that is one thing to keep in mind. Once a driver goes around, and like we already seen, people up into the barriers, it's going to be everyone else trying to get away from them. So with currently about 16 drivers out there today, like we said, it's going to be definitely a bit of a wreck fest, a bit of door-to-door, but that's to be expected from these cars. We'll see. I mean, at this point, a lot of these guys come from the road side of things. It's really anyone's game out here today.
Yeah, definitely. And you can definitely see it in the way that some of these drivers are driving. Because it's very, very hard to stay consistent in terms of setting pace in a race like this, because you never really know when the car is going to bite back. As we can see in a few instances where you try to hold the slide, but the car just decides it wants to let go. Maybe you modulated the throttle wrong, maybe you put a bit too much angle in there, and you either end up in the barrier or you end up spinning out. And it's a very, very high chance of happening. And you can see right now, as just on screen, Pedro Mora, that proving my point, coming over to Belziti right now in the Dynaco livery. Love that color scheme on the cars. And immediately he's already given up on that lap. So start is important. The entire oval is pretty much important. And the moment you stop setting a pace, it's going to be trouble for you, because you're going to end up in the wash with a bunch of the other cars as well.
So one thing to keep in mind out there too for a lot of people new to oval racing. So right now with the track, it doesn't look like there's too much grip, but definitely you'll see the track surface change as the race goes on. Like we said, 91 laps. So that's gonna be a rather long heat race in these cars out here today. So we'll have to keep an eye. You can start seeing a bit of those tires wearing in the line that most drivers take. Kind of really depends on where they're going from the beginning on where they set those lines. So typically some of these you'll see if they have a line high up top, as we can see right now from Davila out here running today. So Davila, one of those faces that we haven't seen as much around these parts. So definitely we'll have to keep an eye on him, see what he can do. He's currently sitting in 9th place with a 14.881. So right now, pretty much the entire field, less than half a second separating them, but that's what you can expect out here in such a short oval track.
Yeah, and I can guarantee you that after the end of this particular race, all these drivers are going to feel the burn. This getting the car under control here is going to be one hell of a workout for these drivers. As you can see, here we have Bruno Do Carmo on track right now in the middle of his qualifying pace, trying to get some dirt, some tracks to get the line where he wants it to be. And you can see immediately this is Freezer here, and he goes off as well. And I'm not gonna lie, you're going to see a lot of those because we have a pretty long race. It's 91 laps, as you mentioned before, in the course of 15 minutes. So it won't feel like it drags on too long, but we're definitely going to see a lot here. As, ooh, that is Felipe Barrichello Bartz there, jumping all the way up to P1 with about 3.5 minutes left in qualifying.
Yeah, last week, and if you were here, we got to see in the Volkswagen Jettas, it was definitely the Barrichello and Bartz family, the team out there on the track, putting it down. So it should be interesting to see, like I said, right now, Felipe in that top spot. But like we said, with some of these newcomers to AMX, we definitely don't know what to expect from them yet. Right now, a lot of these guys kind of shifting back and forth, really just trying to figure out how much grip do these cars actually have, how I have to send it in, especially seeing some of these guys like right now, Spetrenev on the Formula wheel might make it just a little bit more. As you can see, his arms completely getting crossed up there, making it just a little bit more difficult probably than a complete round steering wheel. So, I mean, some of those guys, like I said, they may be at a slight disadvantage as much as you have to really send these cars sideways to get into there. That's typically one of the big things you want to do. Once you can really find those lines, you want to just really send that thing in sideways early on, try to get a good line. It's all about momentum out here. As we can see, Simon Demori currently sitting in 2nd place, seems to have found the momentum so far, as right now we're just about 13 minutes almost into this qualifying session. Simon Demori been sitting atop the timing tower for nearly the entire qualifying.
Yeah, you can see Demori's line here is a little bit different compared to everyone else. Everyone else is trying to go high all the way around and risking the collision into the walls. Demori here actually diving into the apex on the latter half of the turn to try and get as much exit speed as he can on the exit. Ooh, and that's the problem with that. He might end up bumping into the inside markers of the oval. And just like that, his lap is over. We've got less than 2 minutes left to the end of qualifying. These drivers are still out there trying to put their best times, trying to find the best way to navigate this course, and really, it is definitely presenting a challenge for them.
So definitely out here, we can see is now, ooh, great line there, Gerardo Encina. So, like you said, Damon, I mean, especially during qualifying, it's really trying to find, okay, what line is going to have the most grip? And of course, you want to follow that in through the heats, but don't be fooled. Once these guys get into the heat with about 16 cars out there today, I know we've seen Jackson Sanjay yet to set a lap time out there, but with that many cars on this small of a track, it's going to be about really just, you're going to have to force the move. You pretty much have to be into the side of the other people's doors, really try to force them to slide up on the high line, especially as we can see a lot of that loose dirt up on towards the top line. I mean, still a lot of drivers trying to kind of take it, see how close to the top they can get. But the way that we've seen so far in qualifying, it seems like a lot of the guys really using the whole track at this point, really getting a little bit better lap time. So now we're back with Pedro Muro, who's out there. He knows he's trying to get a little bit, like we said, guys, even out here, even thousandths of a second will definitely help out. Every little bit counts out here, especially right now, 44 hundredths of a second between first and last place currently.
Yeah, and you know for a fact that these qualifying lines that these drivers are taking, they will never have a chance to do these in the actual race. There is just not enough room on the oval to fit 16 cars into the same line. And as we wrap up the end of qualifying, we'll get the provisional results on screen in just a moment here. But yeah, already just seeing qualifying, I can already expect to see quite a bit of action. Frame one when it comes to the first heat here. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Absolutely so. There's your qualifying results. Your BenQ Session winner getting it done up in first place, Ralph Benitez with a 14.587. In second place, we got Felipe Bartz, 13th Simon Demori, 14th Pedro Mora, 15th Santiago Barrios, 5th Santiago Barrios, 6th place Edo Encina, 7th Fabrizio Belziti, 8th Gerard Sardeni, 9th place Miguel Araujo, 10th Bruno De Carmo, 11th Lucas Davila. In 12th, we got Samuel Burnett, 13th Evandro Dantas, 14th Roberto Freezer, in 15th, we got Felipe Petrunev, and in 16th, not setting down a time, we got Jackson Asenge. So we'll have to see if Jackson makes it to the grid out here, unfortunately missing out on that top 15 reverse grid. So Felipe Petrunev will be leading the pack out here. And this is going to be a very short formation lap, like we said. I mean, we can't stress enough. I think just, showing a lot of these guys coming from the road, seeing where their iRatings are out here. A few of them, I feel like everyone out there, this is a free car in iRacing, a free track. Kind of dip your toes a little bit into some of the dirt just to see, just have a bit of fun out there. But a few of these guys have a little bit more time out on the track. So those will be the ones to look out for, especially like we said, the likes of, I believe, Felipe Barrichello Bartz will be one of those drivers, probably has the highest iRating so far out of these guys. So we'll see what he does. A lot of stock cars out here today. Damon, any predictions for you think might take home this first heat?
Oh, kind of tough to call. There's a lot of drivers that I haven't really seen in terms of AMX, and the drivers that I do know, I don't know how they are on the dirt. So definitely tough to make a call, but yeah, we'll just have to see what happens in lap one. Whoever ends up cleanly coming out of lap one will probably be the one I peg to win.
So here we go, folks. It is a rolling start. So Felipe Petrunev really going to have to get the jump out here if he wants to hold off. It's definitely going to be a hard place to pass, but nonetheless, like we said, a bit insane out here. 91 lap heat going on for heat number 1 and heat number 2. So anything can happen. No yellow flag coming out today. That is going to be the real game changer. So these guys definitely just going to have to keep it clean. Well, like I said, it is dirt oval racing out here, keeping it clean. We know that's not going to happen. We know there's going to be chaos. We know that there's going to be probably cars flying into the barriers. But now, looking low, the Lightning McQueen car as the pace truck is off. Here we go, folks. We're moments away, and there's the green flag. Ooh, the number 15 getting an absolute great start there. Roberto Freezer getting a jump over Felipe Petrunev for the 2. Now immediately a crash in the back. We had the number 22 going around Hero Encina, Savandro Dantas. Man, just like that, not even a lap into it, we already have chaos, folks.
That's Evandro Dantas and Ralph Benitez, Jackson Resende out of it, I believe. Actually, it doesn't look like Resende even actually took part in the race. That was Evandro Dantas just completely sent to the pit lane. But of course, the car in front is Felipe Petrunev, and you can see these cars are already struggling to maintain the lines that they were using during qualifying right now, because they're jostling for space on the track. And yeah, it's kind of poetic to see Lightning McQueen in front, because obviously we've seen Cars 3. He was excellent on the Demolition Derby racing, the figure 8 racing on dirt track. So yeah, I believe Lightning McQueen has this under control. And that is Roberto Freezer completely gone off. Great first by the car of Felipe Petrunev. Davila behind him as well as Araujo getting passed by Burnett here into lap 5, and absolutely pandemonium going on this track here in heat 1.
So now we can see from that line there, Petrunev taking, he had the outside line, and just like that, it looks like there is a little bit more grip right now, as we can see. Ooh, trying to make a move on the outside. There goes Davila Petrunev. So, ooh, back and forth, those two guys. Like I said, I think really these guys really have to send it in deep, try to ride that top line and carry a lot more speed. So far these guys that are trying to just put it in down on the inside. Just can't quite carry enough speed to really get position. Oh, another one right there. We have El Rajo getting spun out. A bit of damage to his front bumper there as he comes back on. It looks like suspension damage as well. So a bit of an unsafe rejoin. Oh, and that suspension is absolutely toast. He's going to have to hit the pits, get that repaired, and see if he can come back out for heat number 2. Man, unfortunate right there. But like we said, 9 laps into this thing, these laps are quick, folks. These laps are right now running about 15 seconds on average, just under, and a lot of the door banging. So I think these guys have already started to figure it out. You have to be extremely aggressive if you want to gain any positions out here. You have to be very careful on who is right behind you as well, as we got to see earlier. But right now, it is Davila leaving the race, followed by Samuel Burnett in second place, Gerard Sardeni in third.
I am expecting to make a lot of oohs and ahs every time I see an incident happen, and there will be quite a lot of those happening here in Heat 1 as the Villa is still holding on to that lead, managing to eke out a bit of a gap between him and the rest of the pack right now. Samuel Burnett in P2, Sardeni in P3 with Simon Demori trailing close behind. They're actually trading position quite a lot. Bruno DeCarmo is back there. You can see a bit jostling there. That is Burnett. He is fighting with Mori for that spot. It looks like, and you can, oh my god, absolute chaos is going on right now. And look at that, we're already 13 laps in out of 91.
Yeah, right now, and like we said at this point too, it is absolutely a bunch of lap traffic. So now it is all about navigating lap traffic. Davila doing an excellent job, already 2 seconds nearly over second place of Samuel Burnett. So I think right now, Davila, like I said, anything can happen, but managing traffic right now is going to be the biggest part of this thing, especially out here. Things are so close, such tight battles that we expect, you know, the aggressiveness that you need to really get towards the front of the pack with that comes with over racing. Oh, the number 2 gets in around. There we see Samuel Burnett going from second, and just like that, folks, you can go from the front of the pack to almost the back and look like a bit of smoke. So he's going to have to hit the pits. We'll have to see there what happened. I'm not sure if he has a bit of engine damage there as well, but unfortunate, like we said. I mean, yeah, you were right, Damon. It is going to be hard to call this race. Quite literally anything can happen, especially when we're out here. No yellow flags out here, no cautions. So if you get spun around, you just got to hope that you can get back in there and that the other drivers will have the same chaos happen to them. But right now, still, Davila leading in first place. Now Simone Demori up, only down about a second and a half in second place.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever be able to cut the replays at any point in the race, because there's going to be something else happening just as we do that. And you can see these cars here. Drivers have kind of found their line, but as dirt racing is, it's very, very hard to stay consistent, especially when you're sliding around corners like that. Yes, you want to conserve as much momentum as possible, but fight back too hard and the car will bite. And that will put an end to your race if you end up facing the wrong way and into the path of oncoming traffic. So, so far the top 6 drivers in front are doing a pretty good job at holding the line. But it looks like 2 of these 6 cars are actually traffic back markers. So, trying to make sure they don't end up screwing up the rest of the pack. Trying to keep it clean. Got themselves a line forming, so got a lot of space for all of them to really put down the pace.
But just seeing the chaos that has ensued so far, this is exactly why a lot of dirt oval tracks tend to do heat races, because whenever you have this many cars, it's just the chaos will ensue. So a lot of the heat races typically will cut it down about half the grid we have right now running out there. So about 6 to 8 cars you may see out on the grid doing a heat, and then kind of just like I said, bracket style, going up, the fastest ones go to the finals. But that's not what we're doing out here for AMX. We are definitely letting these guys be pushed to the test, be pushed to the limit. So it's a lot of, we can see there, the race leader, the 188 of Davila, just still doing it. But Simon Demori is starting to close that gap. I'm looking at the timing tower. Demori really doing a great job now as well, starting to find his pace. We got to see there towards the end of qualifying, Simon Demori looking like he's going to start getting faster and faster, and he's absolutely doing that out here in heat number 1.
Yeah, definitely. And Simon Demori, we already know him to be a very fast driver. It looks like he's fast on the dirt as well. About less than a second from Davila here. And all he has to do is make sure that he'll be able to navigate through the rest of the pack without causing any incidents. And it goes for every single racer here as well. You really want to be careful especially here with exceeding track limits, because it's not like road racing where if you touch the curb, you might end up lifting off a little bit. These inner markers will launch you if you're not careful. And oh my god, ooh, already a driver getting taken out there as one of the drivers spins out and crashes back into it. Bruno Carmo also getting tagged by this driver as well. And there he goes into the barriers, and just like that, 28 laps in, and we're really seeing things start to heat up. Actually, that's not true. It's been hot since the beginning.
Avandra Dantas just all over the track. Oh, there we see the number 4 as well, just getting parked in the middle. You can't park there, Felipe, unfortunately. So still holding on to the 5th place position, though. Like we said, at this point in the race, these drivers, I think, are starting to figure out, you know what? I'm just going to have to put my nose in there. I'm just going to really have to just not care about driving super clean. I'm going to have to do what I can. Again, this is going to be one of those. You expect a bit more, and almost going around. A great save from the number 16, almost getting pitted. That'd be Bruno De Carmo out there. So Bruno De Carmo in that Red Bull livery, still holding on, doing a great job. And now we see a bit of back and forth between the number 2 and the number 15 of Freeze here. So, man, just so much going on, like we said right here. I think the smart thing, though, is still to see what we've seen from Davila and Simon Demore, just really try to hold that high line. So I think these guys are so worried about trying to not give up position that right now it'd be really smart for the number 16 of Bruno De Carmo to really just try and set it up on the line. I mean, it's kind of hard with all the cars around you to really see, okay, who's actually doing what. This is one of those moments that having a spotter is absolutely essential if you want to come out victorious out here.
Yeah, dirt racing is a full contact sport here on track right now. You can definitely see it. These cars can take quite a beating before they end up do damage to keep running. And here we can see the number 4 car, Felipe Barrichello Bart, still doing pretty well for himself, holding himself in the island of E5 here. As the race leader, Davila is losing a lot of time to Simon Demore. It looks like he might try for a move soon as long as Davila makes a mistake here. You can see very neatly following this line, keeping it tight, keeping it clean, not overcooking the steering, trying to conserve all that momentum for the pass weapon. You can see absolutely beautiful tandem drift coming from these two drivers now as they're trying to make it past the back markers. This is absolute artistry at work here.
So just like that, now we see Simon Demore and Davila still the top 2, but Santiago Barrios right behind Simon Demore as well. So we see a couple of cars out here just trying to slot in right behind Davila. They are not in it for the lead of the race, but they're trying to say, you know what, we have Davila, he is a lap up. I definitely want to try and stick on him and really just try to mimic what the lead driver is doing. That's kind of the best strategy, as now we can see Simon Demore, though, however, still trying to hold a little bit more of an inside line. He's keeping up a pretty good pace, but he knows he wants to be able to try and gain as much slot back up in there with these other guys, really get as close as he can to their door. And now he makes a move right in front. So now he's starting to see that top line working a little bit more grip up there. So now he changes his line slightly, trying to do this. And now, seeing a little bit squirrely in front of him as well. So we have the number 11, Simon Demore. Now still one car between him and the leader, Davila. That'd be a back marker. There is the number 22 of Gerardo Encinas. So Encinas right now, like we said, typically not really as much trying to concede that position like you might see on a road race where, hey, if you're a lap down or more, you kind of want to give up that spot. No, out here, like I said, it's all about momentum. It is a lot safer to just keep things going smooth. Simon Demore gonna have to do what he can to try and get past him. We've seen, again, some of those lines he knows, all right, just waiting for that perfect moment to dive to the inside. Really, he's going to have to kind of get on the door of the number 22 if he wants to make that happen. Here he goes for the move, trying to set it up on the inside now. We'll see as he goes to the next turn. Will he have enough to get it back up? Might slide back up. No, he's still holding it down low. So right here, just like I said, it takes probably around this track about 2 laps to set up a really good run. So we'll have to see, is now just very inching so much forward. Davila maybe starting to feel the pressure a little bit more, but still has extremely clean lines hanging out up there on top, saying if you want this first place position, you're going to have to come and get it.
Yeah, you're gonna want to be super careful when you're trying to set up a dive on the inside, because you're going to lose quite a bit of speed off the rest of the drivers there. As you can see, a little bit of contact going on back there. I think that was the car of Barrios Looks like he's managed to keep it steady, but that could have turned really ugly really quickly. As Simon Demori here, still trying to see if he can make something happen. Oh, immediately that was a bit of a shot there from the 22 car of Encinas, pushing Simon Demori into the wall, giving Barrios the opportunity to seize that position away. And now Simon Demori, bless him, he has to try and make his climb back up to the front of the pack.
Yeah, just like that. I know Simon Demori's not going to be too happy about that, saying, hey, man, you're a lap down. Why are you fighting so hard for this position, for the lead of the race? So, like I said, you know, anything can happen out here. Definitely in real life, having a few friends that race dirt track in real life, moments like that are when you know, all right, this man's going to have something to say once these guys get back to the pits. But for right now, we'll just have to keep an eye on track. Simon Demori able to save it after that hard wall bang, but still now put him all the way down over 2.5 seconds. So we'll have to see as Davila, again, Barrios still in the middle of first and second position. Now it's left room for Felipe Barrichello Bartz to be able to go up. Bartz out here having a little bit more as he goes. Yep, that's the move that we know we're going to have to see right into the door if you're going to want to make that pass. So here we have Felipe trying to set up the move. And Santiago Barrios now, the number 188 of Davila just going wide up there. Had to see exactly, he might have just gotten too close to that wall. So now it's left Santiago Barrios to be able to get the lead into first place.
What an excellent move by Barrios there, really placing himself on the inside there, got a burst of speed coming out of the exit and just made that pass happen as they were drifting around the corner. And now he's almost 2 seconds ahead. So he just has to hold on to his lead. We're about halfway through the race right now, about less than 40 laps remaining in the race. And Felipe Barrichello Bartz here in P3, slowly inching his way back up, made up 11 places from the top of qualifying earlier. The reverse grid, of course, but Belziti not that far behind him as well. This could be a contest pretty much on all fronts as he's trying to claw his way back to the front of the pack. He's 0.3 of a second behind Avila here, who you can see on the cap actually tagging the inside marker of the track that again launched a little bit. Will lose quite a bit of speed, giving space for Felipe Barrichello Bartz to try and make a move. Not close enough, unfortunately, and he might have to try again here, not drifting this corner, to try and catch as much speed as he can on the exit. It looks like he might just make the pass onto Davila happen. Now all he has to do is be careful not to lose it, as Davila isn't going to concede that position quite as easily, and Belziti is also behind, waiting for an opportunity to pounce.
So looking at all that chaos going on, Simon Demori unfortunately had to hit the pits, now a lap down. So that's going to look like that is his heat number 1, from looking like he may possibly have a chance at winning this to sending it all the way back. So now still going to be against Santiago Barrios, having about a 3.5 second gap in first place. Right now, folks, we are on lap number 58 of 91 out here on heat number 1. As we can see, a couple of these guys right there, the number 4 of Felipe Bartz, looking like he has a little bit of damage that's really trying to slow down his pace. I mean, just looking at the front end of his vehicle, that tire sticking out a little bit further than it was earlier on. So he's definitely having to fight the car out here. But right now, I think he's worried a little bit more about trying to hold his position. That's really what you might see coming some of these guys down on that lower line is, a little bit of blinking in and out, and that leaves Belziti just kind of giving him a bit of a bump. So I think right now, folks, this is where it's going to be. But Felipe Barrichello Bartz as well as Fabrizio Belziti probably going to be battling it out. Santiago Barrios looks like he has a pretty significant 4-second lead over everyone else, about 2/3 of the way into this race.
Lucas Davila is looking a little bit shaky on his entrances now, trying to make up as much time, but putting too much steering will force his car to start pointing the wrong way and scrub off a lot of speed that he cannot afford to lose right now. P3 here, Belziti still trying to chase down Bartz here. Very, very close as a matter of fact, but this battle is going to end up slowing them both down, as you can see all the way up in P1. Santiago Barrios 4 seconds ahead of him, and immediately there goes Belziti into the back of Bartz's car, spinning him out, forcing him off the track, and now he has to rejoin, but he's taken quite a bit of damage. Will he be able to continue racing as it is? Looks like it won't be the case, and just like that, Bartz's race back down. He has to try and make the chase yet again.
So just like that, I'm looking at the timing screen as well. So Simon Demori now 4 laps down from the leader. We have Ivan Dantas down 1 lap, Pedro Mura down 2, Samuel Burnett down 3 laps, Miguel Araujo down 56 laps. So Miguel Araujo had a lot of damage earlier on, and looking like he is actually out of the heat. So we'll see if he shows back up for heat number 2, or if, exactly might just have to wait on that one. But like I said, a lot going on right now. Some of the guys towards the back of the pack, I think, might just be saying, all right, I'm just going to get in here, make sure I finish the race. That way I don't get a DNF and try to come out for heat number 2, get on pole position, and really try to walk away. But right now, still, Santiago Barrio is doing a great job over about 5.5 seconds right now into the lead. And, right there, we see the number 188 of Davila still just really having to fight the car. That's the one thing that's hard is, really just hitting the tire barriers on the inside, too. We'll see. If he hits the pits, he might just say, again, I think my race might be done. I'm going to have to go in there and just, he's pulling to a stop off the track. So definitely going to have to hit the pits after that one. So we'll have to see, Damon, exactly where these guys come out for heat number 2. I already know there's going to be a bit of a grudge match between some of these drivers.
Yeah, and absolutely deservedly so. I mean, it's tough to be a dirt racing specialist because it's a full contact sport. It's kind of like sort of reminding me of touring cars of the 90s where everyone was just shunting each other and trying to gain positions. Kind of takes me back to that kind of era, but of course this came first, and we're definitely seeing it right now for the first time here in AMX in a very, very long time. Dirt racing, absolute insanity. Love to see it, and I know the crowd here in the comment section, the chat, is absolutely enjoying this as well.
Yeah, I mean, we might just have to see a lot of people out here loving the dirt oval race. It's been absolute chaos, We'll have to see if for future seasons we get a bit of its own class out here. I know we had oval racing a couple seasons ago. The rules at the time let the drivers only compete in one race per day. So I know there's a lot of drivers that they wanted to do both an oval race and a road race during the same day. But unfortunately, we got rid of that rule, though. We listened to the drivers, listened to the fans out there saying, you know what, it'd be really awesome if these drivers could, just drive as much as they wanted to. So we got rid of that again last season, brought it back. But like I said, with how things are going out here, Damon, I don't think it'd be too far off the radar for everyone out here at AMX to want to see a bit more oval racing going on in the future.
Yeah, it's absolutely hilarious to see right now. Half the drivers are in the pits. So much damage has gone around, and basically we're only seeing 8 cars on track. 9 cars on track, it looks like. Bunch of these drivers in pits, probably calling it. We're about 15 laps away from the end, and yeah, I still don't know who's going to end up taking it.
I mean, right now things are looking pretty good in favor of Balziti, but like we said, Felipe Barrichello Bart's out there in second place. So right now, almost a 5-second gap between first, second, and third place. Each of these drivers kind of in their own right now, like you said, with as many drivers that are in the pits. This is a bit more akin to what you would see in a regular dirt track race. So we have 8 drivers on the field right now. Like I said, we'll have to see. Like we mentioned earlier at the beginning of the race, we knew it was going to be chaos just from the fact that there are going to be no yellow flags out here. So if there was cautions coming out, I mean, there'd have already been so many yellow flags this race, but it would have definitely bunched up the pack a lot closer. Guaranteed a lot of these drivers that are in the pits right now would still be out on the track, but that's definitely, hey, trying to push these drivers. Again, everyone out here having it fun. A full day of oval racing in AMX today. Make sure to come back later on. Don't go anywhere today, guys. It's going to be a good one as we're going to be heading out to Daytona, where we're going to be in the Dallara IR18 Indycars. So we got Indycar oval racing at Daytona. That, I mean, just by the name of that, I know a lot of people are thinking, hey, man, that is absolutely going to be chaotic as well. So going from one extreme to the other, dirt street stock out here at Limaland, going all the way to the far end of it, out to IndyCar at the Daytona Oval.
Yeah, but before we look forward to race 2 tonight, we gotta get this one over with. And 9 laps remaining. These drivers here almost about ready to get crossing the finish line, and then realizing that they still have another heat afterwards. It's gonna take a lot of concentration as Bruno Carbo just spins out on his own, catches the inner marker on his way back into the track, loses a position right now. And yeah, I can see some of these drivers definitely putting 110% to their concentration there, but it might end up affecting them for Heat 2 later on.
And I'm seeing a lot of people out there in the chat, people out there commenting that, hey, this is pretty much turned into an elimination race. And I mean, they're not wrong. This is definitely seen how many people, about half the field only out on the track, the other half still in the pit.
No,
So,
Bruno.
just like another spin out from Bruno De Carmo. So, man, these guys definitely, I mean, they're losing it. You don't see, it's a bit different tire degradation out here compared, you know, when you're on the dirt versus an oval track. But still, 91 laps out here. I think, like we said, it's definitely a race of attrition, as well as, quite honestly, how much luck do you have out here? So a lot of it coming down to skill, a lot of it coming down to luck. Is the number 9 right there, Belziti, as he crosses the checkered flag, hitting that on the inside. You can tell it's all smiles from him. He's glad for the chaos to be done, but it is about time that we see the final results coming in from heat number 1 and get ready for the chaos again in heat number 2.
Yeah, I'm pretty much expecting the same thing going into Heat 2. Lap 1 is going to be absolutely mental. But here are the provisional results for Heat 1. Fabrizio Belziti holding it all the way till the end there. Ralph Benitez in P2. He won in qualifying, so he's going to be pretty much making bank this time around. Roberto Friesen in P3. Felipe Petrini in P4. Parad Sardeni in P5, Bruno De Carmo P6, Felipe Barrichello-Bottas in P7, Pedro Mora in P8, Santiago Barrios P9, Evangelio Dantas, Gero Encinas, Samuel Burnett, Simon Demori, Lucas Davila, Miguel Araujo, and Jackson Resende there. All pretty much more than 10 laps down, which is, man, what are we gonna see in Heat 2?
I mean, one thing to expect, definitely more of the same going on, I can tell you that. But again, from a lot of these drivers, they'll just kind of have to see, all right, now they know exactly what to expect. It's going to be, like we said, whoever's going to be a bit more aggressive out there. Now it looks like the track has been reset a little bit, so those lines, I mean, we still have quite a bit of degradation on some of those lines. Seeing the top line now, I think that's still going to be the line to take for these guys. Right up top again, we got to see a lot of these guys towards the front of the pack until they got kind of taken out by some back markers. So, you know, I don't even know again who to call it at this time. But right now, still the pace truck on the field, getting ready to go off. It is going to be the number 11, the number 188, Davila, Simon Demori, have a chance at redemption here. Heat number 2, we'll see who's going to take away the lead. Of course, Davila doing a great job in heat number 1, leading most of the pack. A great battle going on between Simon Demori. Like we mentioned, those back markers getting a bit in the way, but now it is back there side by side, folks, as we're off for heat number 2. These guys got immediately off the bat, going to be doing a great job trying to find every amount of grip. Simon Demori trying to go for the inside line, get a good undercut right over there, get that switchback going, now leading it up to the top of the line. Here we have Bruno De Carmo now getting in the mix of things as well. And already
Davila.
that's the 188 of Davila getting spun off to the inside. So now he's going to have to get a safe rejoin. We know he has some good lines out there, so as long as he can stay on the lead lap at this point, like we said, folks, it's about survival out here today.
Yeah, we can also see that actually a bunch of drivers ended up starting from the pit lane instead, so they're trying to play catch up as well, and we're definitely seeing a lot of pandemonium here. But Simone Demori going to take this opportunity to eke out as much of a gap as he can possibly get. Wow, second clear of Samuel Burnett here, who is right behind him, as well as Bruno De Carmo, who is trading positions. And Felipe Barrichello-Bottas has to be really careful when he's on the inside. If he clips those inner markers, he's either going into the wall or he's going to go flying.
Oh, and just like that, the number 16 there, Bruno De Carmo getting into the number 4 of Barrichello-Bottas. So these guys just neck and neck. I think now Bart's just really trying to say, all right, I'm going to try and put the squeeze, try to get on the inside of this guy, maybe do a slide move if he has to, try to say, hey, man, all right, you're getting really close on here. He's not going to be too happy. And now, getting sent into the wall. So just like that, not too happy. Bruno De Carmo absolutely getting shunted now on the inside, looking like he's going to have to pit, and he does. So now, unfortunately, Barrichello Bartz as well up into the wall. So those two drivers getting taken out. And that's the one thing, like we said, being aggressive, but you don't want to be too aggressive. If you keep bumping back and forth, you're going to expect the other driver to really hit it back to you. So Barrichello Bartz doing a good job at restraining, trying to keep it safe to the inside. Oh, right there, the 188 Davila just absolutely sending another driver around. Man, so ooh, it looks like some of these guys have a little bit of suspension damage as well, but that's left plenty of room for Simon Demori now, up about 3 seconds in the lead over Roberto Frieser. So we'll have to keep an eye on those guys as well, as still the battle in the middle continuing to go. The number 43 of Benitez, the number 188 of Davila, just these guys back and forth, really giving that position left and right hooks all day long out here. Another spin out in the back. Man, so much going out on track out here already. Again, the number 32 of Evandro Dantas. I think that might be a couple of spin outs he's already had this heat.
Yeah, we are 10 laps in and there are 5 drivers out. It's impressive already, even for AMX standards. And Simon Demori there. Ooh, Ralph Benitez scraping the wall. That sounded pretty expensive here, as he's still trying to fend off Lucas Davila here, trying to keep the rest away from the back of the pack. And Velziti, our last race winner, currently stuck in P6, gonna have to try and claw his way back to the front of the pack. Lucas Davila also trying to do the same, making sure that whatever happened during race 1 doesn't affect him that much going into heat 2 right now. And you can see all the high contact sports going on here, and I am petitioning that AMX do a demolition derby maybe next season.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much as close as we're going to get to a real-life demolition derby out here today. But, I mean, that's kind of the reason, too, that we did this one for AMX ZERO and not one of the higher tiers. One, we definitely have to change the format a little bit if we wanted this to be, like we said, a little bit more mimicking real life. And, oh, another spin out back there. That is Balziti. So, Balziti having a great run in heat number 1 now, just not doing as well. Like I said, a lot of these, some of these guys trying to push it, ending up getting into an incident. Some of the other guys really just a passenger to some of the other people that are being a bit more aggressive. But now we only have about 5 drivers on the lead lap. So Simon Demori still doing a great job. However, Frieser starting to close that gap just a little bit. Those 2 drivers now that they're in the midst of everyone else. Definitely that's where it's going to be about, again, managing traffic out here once you see some of these lap drivers. But we're only 17 laps out of 91 out here in heat number 2, and things already a bit more chaotic than they were in heat 1.
Yeah, we are definitely still quite early on in the race here, as Simon Demori can see the car of Roberto Frieser here right behind him as well. So he's going to be a little bit worried. He had quite a substantial gap early on, but I think just the chaos of everything and being stuck in traffic really put a damper on that, which gives the opportunity for both Frieser and, I was going to say, Samuel Burnett, but Samuel Burnett is close to 5 seconds behind him, so maybe he didn't get as much out of it as Frieser did. But this is a pretty close battle, and from what we know, it might end up to be a collision that might take both cars out. We never know.
So here we see now Simon Demori trying to use as much of the track. You can already see there, folks, just the line that he's taken tends to be the one that has a bit more of the grip. Of course, great thing out here, iRacing does a pretty good job with the modeling, the dirt tracks out here, both in rallycross, the trucks out here, dirt ovals as well. So we can see him trying to hold off now. Frieser really closed that gap super quick. So, ooh, a little bit into the wall behind him. I mean, I seen someone earlier in the chat, they were talking about VR and saying, hey man, imagine how this would look. But I think VR might actually be a little bit more helpful right here. Like I said, how close you have to get onto the doors of each other. You really just need to be able to see on the side of you. So if anyone out there running this in a single monitor, I say, man, good for you. That's going to be really difficult to run that with a single monitor. But like I said, these guys with the triple monitors, even VR might have a slight advantage just knowing right where those drivers are on the inside. And the number 15 still setting up a good run right there, almost able to door Simon Demori, but Simon Demori still holding it off. So I think Demori's going to have to really get a lot more speed as they come up on some more back markers. Now is going to be the moment. Roberto Frieser really trying to set up that move. So Simon Demori going a bit defensive now towards the inside, just wants to keep it in front, keep that lead. But folks, we're not even a third of the way through this thing. and it's already still, what do we say, about 4 drivers out of this one already.
Yeah, he's gonna have to be really careful as he's navigating his way through these back markers because they are pretty much taking up the entire track. So you don't know for sure which way is safe. Diving into the inside to try and get exit speed, which means you can't take the inside. But as they're entering, they're going high, which kind of cuts that off from you as well if you're starting from low. So Simon Demori kind of caught between the rock and a hard place right now. But it looks like he's doing his level best to make it through. Just has to be careful he doesn't clip the inside markers. And looks like he is in a pretty safe spot.
Yeah, and at this point, so just having to take multiple lines out here today, especially once you hit the traffic, that shows just how much throttle control you have to have. Ooh, right there now, still, Roberto Freeze there, all he has to really do is he doors, gets into the door right there of Lightning McQueen, so we got to see these guys get the pass done, however, so now it's back to him and Simon Demori. All he has to really do, he knows it's still early on in this race. Just follow the same line that Simon Demori is doing. Not really let any other drivers get in between them. For Simon Demori, I mean, a smart thing to do is really try to mix up the line a little bit and get some space between you. Try to put a back marker in between the two of your cars. But like we said, great job still. The only 2 drivers that are still on the lead lap right now. So Simon Demori and Roberto Frizer. Samuel Burnett in 3rd place, still about a lap down, almost an entire lap down. He's going to have his work cut out for him. It's, like we said, half a lap roughly out here with about 15-second laps. These guys going back and forth. So we'll have to see. Again, anything can happen. Nearly half the drivers out of the race towards the end. Where these guys are going to sit is, whoa, there we go, Gerardo Encinas. Now, some of these guys trying to really put down the throttle a bit more coming out of these turns. But like we said, just like we've seen there from the number 22, getting a bit squirrely.
Ooh, has to be really careful there. He's not drifting, but the car in front of him is, so he has to be really careful it doesn't end up tipping them on the way out. And you can just see how close the cars get to each other. Any wrong mistakes, as we just see right now, the number 2 car of Sammy Burnett getting pitted by Encinas. And man, I love the commentator's curse, man. It always puts you in a position where, like, you're always in the thick of the action, but that will put Encinas up in front of him. Ralph Benitez also trying to seize the opportunity and make it through the Villa, not that far behind as well. So these cars are going to try to avoid each other for time being. Don't want to slow each other down any more than they already have. It pretty much means that the gap between Encinas and the 2 cars in front, almost 10 seconds, which is insane on a track this small.
Yeah, just like that. So again, that's really what shows whenever you start getting a bit into traffic, just how much that can change everyone's time. As we can see now, Samuel Burnett out here in the VR. Definitely, like we mentioned, it helps to be able to see exactly how close, having that depth perception of where you are on the other drivers. But nonetheless, he still has to drive. He's doing a great job of holding that inside line right now. However, he knows the number 22 in front of him, as well as number 43 of Benitez, just carrying a bit more speed. We've seen all day. I'm surprised not more drivers are trying to run that top line right now, but as we can see where the dirt is being ran through, I'm not sure how much grip at this point in the day is. Big contact, and 2 of them, the number 10 getting spun around, and that is dropping him back. So that's Pedro Mura, Evandro Dantas as well, getting sent back a little bit. So just like that, folks, from one turn to the next, you can be dropped several positions. But here we go, back to the lead. We have the number 11 and the number 15 trying to do great battle. We have also caught up in that the number 10 of Pedro Mora. So just like that, that is going to put a wrench in Simon Demori's race, leave plenty of room for Roberto Frizer to start catching up now that he's having to worry about again, back markers out on the track, kind of starting to compromise the number 11's line. So Simon Demori really trying to hold that inside, just saying, all right, I want to race clean. But at this point, he might just have to go out there and say, all right, man, I am in the lead. I have to be setting this line or else I'm going to lose it. So we'll have to see if Simon Demori starts getting a bit more aggressive. If not, Roberto Frizer definitely has the pace to get that P1 from him.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I don't see a way anyone could race clean under circumstances such as these. But yeah, Simon Demori actually doing his best to keep himself out of trouble, and Roberto Frieza as well. These 2 cars are pretty much locked into an isolated battle on their own, being so far ahead of the other cars. not really giving them any opportunities to make it past. We're about halfway through the race right now, and Ralph Benitez now highest position he's been so far this season. This race didn't end up performing very well last heat, despite the fact that he was fastest in qualifying. It just goes to show you how unpredictable these races can get.
So now we can see things, I think right now, settled a little bit. But I mean, as soon as I say that, I'm just waiting for someone to spin now. But still,
can't jinx it,
Simon
man.
Demori managing traffic pretty well. Ooh, seen again right now, we have on board, well, I'm getting the Logitech car up there up top now, seem to be running a bit more speed. So I think, are these drivers starting to realize, hey, it might be time to just start running different lines. Ooh, the number 10 of Pedro Moura right there, almost going around once again. So Pedro Moura right now is just about surviving for him. There's already been a few times that he's spun out. Definitely hasn't hit the pits just yet, but I mean, if we see what happened during Heat 1, these drivers trying to turn up the aggression, trying to say, all right, I got in a bit of a groove, but I want to start gaining positions. That's when the chaos will start happening again. So right now, still Simon Demori being very, very cautious with the back markers right in front of him. Again, we'll have to see the inside line. He's doing a great job holding on to it, but it's not really that fast. So I think right now, again, he's just having to mirror drive. Just make sure to know Roberto Frizer is catching up. He's right on his rear bumper. And yeah, that's one of the great things out here. Stock car racing, a lot of the times on short tracks, you have to really just mirror drive. So Simon Demore doing a great job of that so far.
Yeah, it's all about exit speed here. You want to be conserving as much momentum at the end and then plant your foot down as soon as you get some semblance of grip so you can power out the exit. And you can see on Simon Demori's dash cam earlier on when he was pulling alongside Belziti. Ooh. Oh, that was a little bit hairy there. I think they almost got into a little bit of an incident, and just like that, Simon Demori gets pitted by Frieza, and now Frieza takes away the position. Simon Demori dropped down a second, and he also did tag the inner marker at the end there, so he scrubbed off even more speed, and now 2 seconds behind. Gerardo Encinas is now down to 5 seconds behind the rest of the pack, so all of a sudden we might see something else happening. Another car going to take part in this battle. 2 cars, as a matter of fact, going to end up fighting for the lead later on, assuming they can catch up.
So that's 2 heats in a row that Simon Demori's been fighting for the lead just to ended up pitted around. So like I said, I mean, that is part of stock car racing. That's what they say, boys. Rubbing is racing. You know, of course, if the officials have something to say, if the drivers have something to say, but in these cars out here, that's definitely part of it. It's a bit controversial because even the same all the way up through NASCAR with these drivers going all the way door to door. It might be a controversial thing, but that is kind of part of the sport. So definitely you have to come in here with a different bit of a mindset, and Roberto Frizer came in here with that mindset today. Now still holding on to the lead. Simon Demore really going to have to assert his dominance if he wants to get back in that top spot. Going to have to, I mean, quite honestly, start shoving these guys out of his way, saying, hey man, you got back markers. I'm still fighting for the lead out here. You need to move or I will move you. So we'll have to keep an eye on him. Roberto Frizer now not feeling too much pressure. Once again, just kind of making sure to keep an eye on the guys on the left and right of him. Mostly on the right, as he's been sticking to that inside line nearly the whole race. So I think right now there's probably not quite a bit of enough grip for 2 lines to be forming. I think just the majority of the pack favoring that inside line now has really started wearing in the track. So we'll have to see as again, right in front of Frizer, these guys still struggling a little bit just to kind of keep that momentum going. So if Frizer is not able to make a move on these back markers, that is going to give plenty of time for Simon Demore to start catching back up.
Yeah, and just like that, you can see on the camera the difference between the high and low line. On the top, you get really slow entry but absolutely blistering exit speed, and on the flip side, if you stay low, you end up with a really good entry but then kind of sacrifice a little bit on the exit. So it really is a matter of what do you take right now when you're trying to stay ahead. And the gap between Simon Demori and Frieza is now less than 2 seconds, less than 1.5 seconds as a matter of fact. So Simon Demori actually really taking the opportunity of Frieza getting stuck behind his back markers to catch back up to him. We've got less than 30 laps remaining, and it really looks like it's about to heat up.
So, I mean, I'd be really curious to see how these guys, if we got them in a, I'd say a normal format out here of you have your heat races, a bit more bracket style, followed by your final heat. That is all the drivers on track, a bit longer. So, like I said, usually the format, you see a lot of dirt oval races. They have multiple heats out there, a lot smaller fields on the racetrack at a time. Like I said, very similar to Rallycross. Usually you have about 3 or 4 heats out there, depending on how many drivers are entered into the race, followed by your final heat with most of the grid out on there. But like I said, just right here, running the normal AMX format of, your qualifying followed by 20-minute heat 1, 20-minute heat 2, definitely shaking things up. So if we do end up seeing more oval races in the future, that would be one thing to keep in mind. Should there be caution flags? Should there be heats? I mean, definitely, we'll have to see what the drivers have to say. The fans out there, I mean, we see you guys still going wild in chat. Things have slowed down a little bit from heat number 1 and the heat number 2, but that's to be expected with 91 laps out here around Limaland Park. As we can see now, the number 2, getting a little bit squirrely there as well. That's Samuel Burnett. So Samuel Burnett dropping down a position in 5th place currently. It looks like Roberto Frizer and Ralph Benitez, the 2 drivers that have moved the most on the grid today. Roberto Frizer up 12 positions from where he started. Ralph Benitez up 10 positions. And just we say there, Samuel Burnett dropping another position. So at this point, a lot of these guys, again, just trying to survive. And really just bad line on the inside. And there, I'm not sure if Burnett is going to hit the pits. That looked like that almost might have caused a bit of damage.
Yeah, and despite the fact that these cars can take a beating, obviously you don't want to go too ham on them. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a compromised position, and damage is definitely something that you really, really feel in iRacing. But Samuel Burnett, he's kind of like just let it go, and he's chilling right now. So he's back down to P8, trying to do his best, at least stay in the race, be in a finishing position. And Roberto Frizer, still fending off Simon de Mori quite well, as a matter of fact. Despite being caught behind all these back markers, Simon de Mori was really unable to make any headway in the last 10 laps or so. So he's going to really have to try and set up for something quickly. Otherwise, he's going to see the victory run away from him. And it's just so difficult to call, because right now you can see just how hard these drivers are working to keep their car under control and how much they're concentrating. You kind of really have to take stamina into account as well, how tired these drivers will end up being, because the more tired you are, the more mistakes you can make. As Lucas Davila also gets pitted out by Burnett here, and he's not going to be too happy with that. Back down to P8 as Burnett takes away his position.
So there we see, as like we're settling into it now, a couple minutes left on there. So like you mentioned, Damon, definitely going to have to keep an eye on what Simon de Mori is doing. Again, it's been really a lot of just managing traffic this late on in the race. A lot of those back markers. Roberto Frizer doing a great job of not trying to really compromise his line, but knowing, all right, if it comes down from push comes to shove, he's definitely not afraid, as that's how we got to see him make the move over Simon de Mori, just kind of saying, you know what, man, I'm going for it. I'm going to send it in, and kind of hitting de Mori just a little bit. Like you said, we'll have to see what these drivers have to say after in the chat. But another thing to go, make sure to stick around. We have AMX 5 coming up after this race, where we are headed to Daytona International Speedway. Going to be running the oval with the Indycars, and that's definitely going to be a sight to see. Like I said, IndyCars typically not running out there on a super speedway like that. It's a bit dangerous. Speaking about a bit dangerous right there, Frizer just getting in the back of the number 2 of Samuel Burnett. So that might have been the moment that now, as long as Burnett, okay, let Simon de Mori go by. So now it is back to a race towards the lead, but it might be too late at this point, Damon.
It does seem that way. We've got less than a minute before the end. We've got about a minute left before the end of the heat. Simon de Mori really unable to make any meaningful difference in terms of the gap between him and Frizer, which probably means that Frizer will end up taking this near the end. But yeah, honestly, well played to Frizer. He's been keeping it nice and steady throughout the entire thing. In fact, that one move onto Simon de Mori was pretty much enough to guarantee him that race win here. And he's been holding it ever since, so props to him.
So here we go, folks. As now, like we said, we are only moments away from the white flag coming out. Roberto Frizer looking like he might just have this one in the bag. These two drivers up front putting on a great show, a great battle, a bit of give and take, but nonetheless, Roberto Frizer up 12 positions. Simon Demori doing a great job holding on, been very defensive the entire heat. Had a bit of an incident going on in the last heat that put him all the way near the back of the pack. And now a little bit less drivers out here in this heat. So I think these guys came out for heat number 2, said, all right, time to just really survive, be a little bit more cautious out during the race. And the checkered flag flies. Roberto Frizer coming out here, an AMX winner today. Definitely putting on a great show. Simon Demori coming in second place, and now Gerardo Encinas in third as we see Samuel Burnett go around. Unfortunately, out there, Lightning McQueen coming on, number 22, Gerardo Encinas. And these guys just getting a bit into a crash out there. Like we said, Demolition Derby out here today. Man, what a race it was. Definitely different from what we always see out here at AMX. So we'll have to see again. We have people going crazy out there, a lot going on from the drivers, but nonetheless, will we see more dirt races? Well, for one, we do have another dirt race, not in the street stocks, but coming up in a few weeks, we will be out here in what I like to call just the jumpy trucks. That will be at the Wild West Motorsports Park. Coming up in a few weeks in the Pro 2 Live. But for right now, your BenQ session winner, Roberto Frizer, walking away with that win. You can tell these guys a little bit tired after that one. Simon Demori coming in second place. Gerardo Encinas in third. Ralph Benitez in fourth. Vanjo Dantas fifth place. In sixth place, we have Pedro Mura. Seventh, Felipe Petronev. Eighth, we got Samuel Burnett. Ninth, Fabrizio Balziti. In 10th place, we got Lucas Davila. 11th, Gerard Sardeni. 12th, Santiago Barrios. 13th place, we got Bruno De Carmo. 14th, Felipe Bartz. 15th, Miguel Araujo. And Jackson Asenge, which I don't think Jackson ended up really making it out onto the grid the entire time. So hopefully we get to see them. And Samuel Burnett setting the fastest lap. So like I said, some of these guys, hopefully we get to see them later on in the Indy cars. Definitely know a couple drivers opted out of AMX ZERO, focusing on AMX 5, especially when there's a bit more points on the line, a bit more money. But nonetheless, Damon, that was an absolute banger of a race to start off the day.
Yeah, definitely. And to the other drivers that will also be taking part in AMX 5 later on, I can only say do your best. You kind of have to reset the mental because you're transitioning from the dirt oval to a high speed oval. So try to get yourself cleaned up, wash away the entire insanity that was the dirt race, and try to reset yourself for what's going on. Because I don't want to end up seeing the Indy cars start getting into each other during the actual race itself, but it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, again, that's going to come down to just experience where these guys have in the open wheel racers, especially at Daytona, just the draft from the super speedway like that. I mean, I already know there's going to be a few incidents that we're going to have to keep an eye out. Again, it's going to come down to experience, how comfortable these guys can get in these cars, and just how quick they can learn the car around the oval of Daytona. So, like I said, folks, everyone out there, make sure to stick around for that race. We're going to be going live for AMX 5 here in a few minutes. Follow all of our social medias. Go check out some stuff there in the meantime, as well as head over to amxrace.com. If you want to sign up, like today's race, AMX ZERO, absolutely free to join. Yeah, anyone could get in there. This was one I kind of wanted to get in there. So if I wasn't in the booth, man, you would have absolutely seen me having a blast out there in the dirt. But like I said, folks, don't go anywhere. In a few minutes, we'll be back. Daytona International Speedway, IndyCar Ovals.
See you in a bit.
Max Verstappen back into first place. They want to make that move, but here goes Gustavo Ariel diving to the inside. Gael Valero looking for the move over Archie Neumann. He has it.
And you can just see Peter Zuba pushing Florian Labigra right over.
Oh, Chris Lallum, he does make that pass.
Gael Valero doing his best on the outside, gets sideways, and no, the teammates crash. We had the number 11 going right there. 3 wide out there in the middle of the field through the mountain straight now, going 3 wide.
Oh my word, that is probably one of the best shots of the entire season.
Towards the Niki Lauda curve, bumping and banging and into the wall. That is a horrible crash.
2 wide now, door to door. Max Verstappen to Van der Dantes. Max Verstappen able to safely rejoin. Slots it right in front of another car.
Carousel immediately, he gets punted off. That was Saavedra. Aguilar, he's gone off, he's been tapped, and he's into the barriers. Oh, the rejoin. Oh, no.
Dean. Oh, Pedro, Dean.
Oh, Chris Lallum does have the inside track for the Swiss left. If he's able to make that pass happen, he might be able to cut away Victorino. He does make that pass, and he makes it clean as they come into the right hand. And this is it. Chris Lallum seizes the opportunity and makes it. And just as the end, the rain comes to put a pin onto the end of the race, and Chris Lallum takes it.
Miranda Peter Zuba into the wall.
It's actually Valero. Valero's actually gone off into the barriers coming up to the cutting.
David Todd making his way back up has already climbed 7 positions.
Oh, I spoke too soon there. Then it goes up.
So right now, this is going to be where it's going to get shaken up. And David Toth passes them while they are in the pit through the mountain straight now, going 3 wide.
Oh my word, that is probably one of the best shows of the entire season.
So we have 3-way battle going to the most dangerous turn of the mountain. Up the mountain, we have contact right there. These guys going absolutely crazy. It's going to come down to the final corner, Murray's corner. Who is going to have to lead? We may have a drag race to the finish line on our hands, folks. You see David Toth right now going into the pit lane.
We go racing for heat number 1 here in Austria. Over AMX 20 in towards the Mickey Lauda curve, bumping and banging and into the wall. That is a horrible crash. That's a huge lunge from Gaston Calabi, and he's made contact with, I believe, oh wow, it's a chaotic moment here. And slipstream in front for either car, and you can just see Petosova pushing Florian Labigra right over.
Here we go then. Dallara, he looks left, he looks right. He's going to the right hand side, which is the inside going 8 to 10 3.
Here it is. This is the crucial moment in this race. It's looking like it's only going one way. David Dott is going to take the race lead. Heading into the second half of the season, the Hungarian of David Dott has driven a masterclass here with the early pit stop. Not the ideal strategy, but an ideal race winner and an excellent performance.
To save our home, we must travel through the gateway to find new energy.
From one end of the spectrum of oval racing to quite the opposite end, folks, we're out here at Daytona International Speedway, where we're going to be racing the Dallara IR18 Indycars. It's going to be a great one out here today. As looking at the grid so far, we got a lot of great drivers coming in from the Pro Series, coming in as their first time possibly driving the Indycars and everywhere else in between. Everyone, welcome back to AMX 5. We are in season 6 already. Man, it has been a great day so far, Damon. Again, this is quite, if we've seen what we've seen earlier on in the day for AMX ZERO, the chaos that ensued, I mean, we just might have to see if that's exactly what we're going to get again.
Yeah, and after the absolute insanity that was the last race at Limaland, Kind of hoping that it might be a little bit more chill this time around, but of course, being AMX, you never know what might happen, and that's why we love it so much, don't we?
Absolutely. But for everyone out there watching at home, like we always say, make sure to follow all of our social media, subscribe to our YouTube, follow us on Twitch. We go live every single weekend, and man, like I said, I know quite a few people out here on the grid. I kind of have a feeling where this might go. But before we check in with our drivers out on the grid in qualifying, we have a few things to go over. Like we said, we've been out here already a few weeks. Since September 7th, and we're going all the way through November 17th. We have this season's prize pool of $11,000 plus next level racing gear. The format goes as follows. For AMX 5, we got our 20-minute qualifier, followed by a top 15 reverse grid. Going into heat number 1 of 35 minutes, followed by that second top 15 reverse grid. Finally into that heat number 2 of 25 minutes. For all of our drivers out there, driver cams are required. You can get the link on our AMX Discord or via the website. Payouts are done in balances over $100 every single month. So once your balance hits over 100, expect that money your way. We're here every single Saturday and Sunday this season. And like I mentioned earlier, you can get signed up to race anytime over at amxrace.com. So every single Saturday, we're out here starting at 5:50 p.m. with AMX ZERO, followed by AMX 5 right after at 7:10 p.m. GMT. Every other Sunday, we got AMX 10, a doubleheader going on 5:50 p.m. and again at 7:30 p.m. And on the off weekends, we got AMX 15, our mini endurance races going on at 5:50 p.m. So like I said, Sundays, it's definitely going to be a good one tomorrow, back with AMX 10 as well. Prize pool goes as following for our AMX 5 races. A little bit different this season. We got qualifying first, second, third going home with $12.50, $10, $7.50, all the way down into 15th place. Heat number 1, we got double the points, a little bit more on the line for that first heat, going $25 for first, $20 for second, $15 for third. Once again, all the way down into 15th place. And then back for heat number 2, a little bit shorter race, a little bit less points. $12.50 for first, $10 for second, $7.50 for third, all the way down to 15th. With heat number 1 and heat number 2 both getting $2 for that person that sets the fastest lap, coming to a total prize pool per race, $250. For our AMX 5 races, there must be a minimum I rating of 2,000 for that race. So if you have 2,000 and you want to get out here, like I said, head over to amxrace.com and come win you some money. So far, our AMX top 10 of the AMX 5. Starting in 10th place, we got Miguel Araujo. In 9th place, Jackson NJ. 8th place, Juan Blenat. 7th, Vanzer Dantas. 6th place, Ralph Benitez. 5th place, Simon Demori. 4th, Victor Miranda. And your top 3 and 3rd with 74.5 points, Bruno De Carmo. 2nd place, 109 points, Pedro Dean. And leading it, of course, with a significant lead, Gael Valero coming in 195 points. Looking like he's trying to get that 3-in-a-row championship for AMX 5. But like we said, folks, we're still not even halfway through the season. Anything can happen towards the top of that grid. Pedro Dean coming back out. We'll have to keep an eye on those guys as well. But back to today's race, oval racing all day long, Damon. First, we got to see the dirt races. Now, heading it back over for some IndyCar oval action.
Definitely, and we are here, of course, at one of the most prestigious ovals in the United States. It is, of course, Daytona International Raceway. And here in Daytona Beach, USA, opened in 1959, track length about 5.7 kilometers. I believe this is one of 3 drafting tracks in the NASCAR Cup Series calendar, the other ones being Talladega and Atlanta. So we're definitely going to see quite a bit of that happening here. This is, of course, very high-speed oval, 3 corners in total, but you don't really worry about corners in an oval, do you? Banking's pretty steep, so you can pretty much go flat out throughout the entire race. And for these cars specifically, you're going to want to utilize that draft to its absolute fullest. And as you mentioned before, these are the cars that we will be taking over. Just you'll see in your screen just a little bit. It is, of course, the IndyCars. Absolute behemoth open wheel racers. Tons of aero, tons of power, 700 horsepower going through the rear wheels, 735 kilogram curb weight with a sequential gearbox. You are going to be experiencing severe, high amounts of G-forces when you're driving these cars around, and these cars will be blisteringly fast around this oval. But you don't need me to tell you, as you're about to see it for yourself. So Kevin, take it away.
Yeah, so now we're going to check up on where our driver's at during qualifying. So just a quick reminder, out here qualifying, we do it a little bit different than the road tracks. We have the drivers out here one at a time out during qualifying, so they're the only one out on track, making it a little bit fair with the draft being so significant out here in these vehicles compared to something like the road cars where that's a little bit more like real life. So out here right now, I see the Drago livery. That's going to be David Toth, who one of the few professional drivers that we get to see out here. Of course, out there in the official IndyCar professional series in iRacing. Man, I've been watching that lately, and I know, man, it's great to see IndyCar coming back to iRacing, especially once we get the Pro Series. Definitely something to see. So David Toth going to be one to watch out for. So far, Jackson Assange, however, though, is still slightly in the lead. But now as we come across the checkered flag, will David Toth be able to increase his time? And it looks like he will not. So still slightly sitting just behind Jackson Assange. But however, folks, we are only 8.5 minutes into this 20-minute qualifying session. If you want to see the live timing with us, go ahead and scan that QR code. I know, like I said, Damon, David Toth, although he has a pro license out here in the IndyCars, definitely some of these guys that we don't get to see usually might be able to come out and shake things up a bit.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm kind of wondering how much they'll be able to maintain their focus and stamina, considering the absolute gauntlet that we put them through last race. Them being pro drivers, I wouldn't expect anything less than absolute concentration. But of course, anything can happen here at AMX, and we've got about 11 minutes of qualifying left. All these times are very, very close to one another. In fact, less than 3/10 of difference between all the times of all 11 cars there. So you know this is going to be super close.
So it's a good mix of drivers out here today. So we have some guys out here that are used to driving NASCAR vehicles, some guys out here used to the open wheelers. So definitely probably going to be a bit more in favor of the guys. Like I said, of course, David Toth having a lot of experience in this specific car, getting to be out there, do a lot of oval races in the IndyCar so far. So like I said, Daytona, a little bit different than what's on the actual series for IndyCar. These guys typically run a longer track, would be out at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but today we're going to be running out at Daytona International. So one thing that's going to be a little bit unique to AMX out here. So I think these guys also just trying to figure out, usually that bottom line, especially in NASCAR, is really where you want to be. But again, with these cars having so much more downforce, you still typically want to do that. But as well, now we see Gael Valero really taking his time to get out on the track. Speaking from some of the other guys in previous seasons, at least in the NASCAR vehicles, when you're out at the super speedway trying to do your qualifying, you want to have a little bit cooler tires, just enough to where you're not going to get a penalty going on. And I think that's really the strategy for Gael Valero. He knows out here, all right, I'm really going to only have one really quick lap. So as we see him on the back straight going into turns 3 and 4, I think he might start picking up a little bit of speed, and then he picks it back up to try and get it. So a little bit different strategies out here for qualifying than we may possibly see in some of the other IndyCar oval races.
Yeah, and it's always very interesting to see the strategies that these drivers end up formulating to really put on the best pace they can. So far, Gael Valero is still hanging at P3, but things could change later on. Less than 9 minutes left till the end of qualifying, and of course, you have to remember that race pace is going to be vastly different from qualifying pace, just because these drivers will end up having the slipstream to help them out in these fast sections. Well, I say fast section, the whole track is technically fast, but yeah. Heat 1 especially will have the added condition of having one mandatory pit stop, so that also plays into the strategies that these drivers will formulate, and that is why drafting here in particular for this particular event is going to be super important for them.
Absolutely. So Like I said out here, I know there's a bit of confusion going on from some of the drivers. Like I said, they're used to driving on the road track, so now seeing it, like I said, not only just shaking up their strategies out here, but definitely we may not see some of the same team alliances that we typically get to see during some of the road races. One of the big ones being Dallara Esports. We have a lot of those guys out during pretty much every single AMX 5 race out here. They're not going to quite have the advantage of having their teammates, but we'll see where that plays in the strategy as well. Like we said, David Toth, Gael Valero, those guys kind of running it out here on their own. We have Vinny Dean out here today with us, Pedro Dean. So the two brothers out here, possibly maybe the only drivers that might really be working together. Of course, we got to see Simone Demori out here, Fabrizio Balziti, Gerard Sardeni. So quite a few drivers that we got to see over on the oval track at Limaland earlier today. We'll have to see now that they have a lot more downforce. Definitely, they were used to having to send it in sideways out at the oval track. Now, having to really focus. And again, one of those things, we had someone comment earlier about oval racing and VR. I think in certain instances, definitely you want to have at least triple monitors, have just a slight advantage. But again, there's plenty of tools out there. I know a lot of these guys running different overlays, kind of helping them a bit, having the crew chief, having a spotter. So all those things too can definitely help. But right now we have about 11 drivers out on the grid. So I don't expect there to be as much chaos as maybe some of these guys are used to in the Indy cars. I mean, nearly a third of the field from what they are used to in the Pro Series. Like I said, Davital Jackson essentially still doing an amazing job out here. We've seen him time and time again out there in open wheel cars, doing a great job, as well as Gael Valero. But once you put him on the oval, definitely see where they shine. So I think that's a great thing I love about IndyCar, Damon, is a lot of the regular series, they have the perfect mixture of oval races and road races. And in my opinion, I'm not going to say, more skill than F1. That's a controversial thing, but definitely it's a different set of skills that you have to have out for IndyCar.
Yeah, it definitely is. So I'm never going to knock any discipline of racing because every single one pretty much has a requirement of a particular set of skills that sometimes other disciplines don't have. So it's motorsports in general is just something that you should celebrate regardless of what discipline you're in. And we're definitely seeing it full force here with the Indy cars. They're open wheelers. They've got massive aero, massive power, just like F1. Of course, different set of skills required. And the cars are also set up differently. So we'll have to see how these drivers handle it as they're going around the oval. And as you mentioned before, the differences between this and these street stock cars, the dirt stock cars that they took around the oval last time, night and day. These have buckets of grip compared to the ones, as well as the fact that you don't really have to be sliding your car around the corner in order to make it fast. Regardless of that, however, we'll see how these drivers adapt. Maybe they're still stuck in the mindset of the dirt ovals, and we'll have a bit of time. We'll need a bit of time to adjust, but then again, we'll see.
Yeah, now here, one thing to keep, once you're going this fast in the Indy cars and you hit the oval, I mean, quite honestly, a lot of time, your top positions come down to the thousandths of a second. So that's the nature of these cars. I mean, a little bit more than NASCAR of usually having, like I said, a lot more downforce, a little bit more speed, weighing that much less. The draft is going to be huge out here at Daytona today. So that's going to be one thing. I mean, again, it might be akin to something that you'd see typically for like the Indy 500 or even the Daytona 500 for the NASCAR. But with heat number one having that one mandatory pit stop, I think it's really going to come down to the drivers just having to watch the lead driver where he comes in. And speaking of the lead driver, David Toth now able to finally get back onto that top spot. So David Toth overtaking Jackson Essential qualifying now. Just about 4 minutes left in this qualifying session. A lot of these guys starting to really figure out, starting to get a bit more comfortable, and I'm seeing a few more times increases there. So Jackson Sendry second place, Gael Bolero third. We have Roberto Frizer now in fourth position. Ralph Benitez looking to get a little bit more, currently sitting in that fifth place spot. But like I said, whenever you have this close, less than a tenth of a second through your top seven drivers, you know it's going to be super close racing, door to door. Well, one thing these drivers can't do is they can't get into the side of each other like you might in a NASCAR stock car. The Cup vehicles typically have a little bit of, you don't want to get into each other too much, but there's a little bit of relief. These, you hit that other tire going over 200 miles an hour, you hit someone's tire, you're done. You are sent into the wall, and it's going to be an absolute highlight reel of a show going on.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to end up locking wheels, and this is true for every single open wheel car there is. You lock the wheels, you end up both taking each other out. And Ralph Benitez here looking like he has purple sector in the beginning, so he might just shoot to the top, and there he is. 5,000ths of a second in front of David Toft there. Great drive from Ralph Benitez, and with less than 3 minutes left in qualifying, kind of hard to see whether or not anyone will be able to pit that time.
And starting to see with some of these guys. So like I said, the Delinta Esports guys out here, of course, known, famous by Tony Kanaan. So I'm worried, not worried, I'm curious if these guys had a little bit of tips for today's race. Of course, some of these guys out there driving in the IndyCar series, out there, other IndyCar races, the other open wheels. But, you know, just having that, I'm wondering if they're feeling a little bit of pressure, trying to be a little bit, you know, I'm sure they're proud right now. They have a Brazilian in first and third place. Both of those guys, of course, on the Delinta Esports team, making their country proud, making Tony Kanaan proud, definitely showing, hey, we are on this team for a reason, as well as David Toth showing out there still on second position. Like I said, I think out here it's not going to matter too much with how close these drivers are in qualifying, exactly where they are on the grid, because of how intense the draft is out here at Daytona. So that, in combination of the 11 drivers on the grid right now, definitely not going to be too much of a hassle for that reverse grid, for them to fight their way back towards the front of the pack. Like I said, gonna have to really keep an eye on the person in the lead, because that's gonna be the biggest thing that is a make or break out here today. Whether or not those drivers get out of the draft, you might as well hit your pit stop, try to time it and get back in the pack. So Damon, we'll have to see if everyone comes in at the same time, or if there's going to be some incidents that cause these guys to pit early.
Yeah, and knowing our track record here, AMX, the latter seems more likely, but in the event of an ideal race, I would say all the drivers would probably end up hitting around the same time, because the draft is just so important, and the moment you lose it or have trouble catching back up to it, you're immediately completely out of the race. And for this particular instance, drafting also serves another purpose, which is to save fuel, because as you're gaining speed, you're facing less air resistance, you end up using less fuel in order to maintain the speed. So definitely going to be another important factor to consider whenever these drivers are going in for their pit stop, is whether or not they're able to catch up to the pack, stay within the train, and also have enough fuel to really go for that last mad dash to the finish line.
So like we have, folks, now coming up to the end of our qualifying session, a lot of the drivers have hit back in the pit. So now still Jackson Sanjay, he was in first place early on, now still trying to just inch out every little tenth, every little millisecond that he can. So we'll have to see exactly where he falls on this. But like that, our closing to qualifying comes to an end. It's looking very, very good for these guys up front. Ralph Benitez, David Toth, Gael Valero, your top three. Jackson Sanjay, I don't think he had just enough time to get into that top three place. Looks like he's going to have to settle for fourth place right now. But yeah, I mean, definitely going to be interesting one for sure. If I could put it down to one word, interesting. Definitely. But there's your BenQ session winner, Ralph Benitez, the Team Delinta Esports driver, in that first place position, followed by second place, we got David Toth, third, Gael Valero, fourth, Jackson Sanjay, fifth place, we got Roberto Frizer, sixth place, Evandro Danta, seventh, Gerard Sardani, eighth, Simon Demore, ninth, Vinny Dean, 10th, Fabrizio Belzidi, and 11th, rounding out, we got Pedro Dean. So still, like I said, less than a tenth of a second separating the majority of these drivers out there on the field today.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see how these drivers get on once we actually get down to the nitty-gritty of the first heat here. Of course, we do have to deal with the formation lap first, but once these cars set off, they really will start setting off, and it will immediately kick out 0 to 100 almost immediately once the green flag is waved down. So far, I'm kind of finding it hard to already make early predictions. What about you, Kevin? What do you think?
I mean, really just looking at qualifying, I think at this point, I might have to go with the guys that just have a little bit more experience. Like I said, the Delinta Esports drivers, both of those guys out there having the support of Tony Kanaan, as well as David Toth being in the Pro Series. I mean, I think probably either of them, but again, Gael Valero, has been putting a lot more time into the oval. So I know that man one to definitely watch out for. As we've seen last season when we had a NASCAR race out here at AMX, we got to see Gael Valero walk away with the win. So I mean, it's really too close to tell, especially how dangerous these cars can be. But I'm going to give it to probably one of the Delete the Esports drivers or David Toth. I mean, those are going to be probably my top three. Like I said, top three qualifying. But again, it's going to come down to how close are these drivers getting, especially with the slower guys now in the front of the pack. Not too much slower, just a little bit, but you really have to know how much room do you have in these cars, or else you are going into the wall.
Yeah, and Gal Valero, they're trying his best to master every discipline there is known to man, and doing a pretty good job at it, I must say. But you have to remember, IndyCars do present its own set of challenges. Track looks like it's pretty wide, but we all know that track space is an illusion. If you end up going or straying over your line just a little bit too much, it could end up badly for whoever ends up on the other side of that incident as well. So we're about to start. It's getting pretty intense already, and I'm just trying to shake off the chaos that was the last race and get myself ready for this one, because it sure seems like it's shaping up to be another banger here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I already see some people out there in the chat too cheering on Delinte. We see you guys out there, so we know who they're choosing. We know a lot of guys out there in chat who their favorite drivers are. We've seen time and time again. But here we go, folks, as now we are rounding the final turn. It's going to be out here on pole position. We got Pedro Dean and Fabrizio Balziti on the lead lap. Here we go, folks. Good to see a great jump out there. A great start by Pedro Dean leading it. Vinny Dean also getting an amazing start. So we have a Brazilian 1-2 already on our hands. But like you said, folks, big thing is going to be the draft. Once these cars get up to speed, over 200 miles an hour, the entire race, fuel is going to be on these guys' minds as well. So like I said, a lot of this is going to be slotting right in, get that train going. The guys towards the back of the pack are going to really have to work together immediately, as there's already two different trains forming. So like I said, really going to be down to having to know where you can run this thing. A lot of these guys have quite a bit of oval experience. Damon, we're just going to have to see. Anything can happen, like we say out here at AMX.
Yeah, absolutely. With 60 laps in the first heat here, it's going to be shaping up to be a slobber knocker. And Vinicius Dean is doing his best to get an early advantage by taking the lead. But Simon Demori is hot on his heels, very close behind. In fact, all these cars are super close behind, even the ones at the back of the pack. The train is starting to close in, as all of them are pretty spaced out, which means that they're not really getting the draft that they want to eke out that gap that they would like. As here's Roberto Frieza actually making it to the front, in front of Simon Demori. They're cutting in front of him to try and block him off. Very, very precarious position as Pedro Dean there, also almost putting one wheel on the flat area of the track and immediately losing control, but keeping it nice and steady right now. And you can see just how fast these cars are going around this oval. 380 kilometers an hour. That's 240 miles an hour. Absolutely blistering pace.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can see, like I said, a lot of these guys, if they stay within 1/10 of each other right there, that's really where you want to be holding on to the draft. Again, a lot of this is going to be a race about patience. We're out here in heat number 1. We're going 60 laps around Daytona. So with about 2.5 mile laps out here, folks, that's going to be pretty quite crazy with these drivers out here. So, I mean, really to see where they're going to go. Yeah, see now people, man, just crazy, 380 kilometers an hour. I think that's even hard, even from some of these point of views, unless you're there in real life to really get a sense of speed. But so far, Vinicius Dean doing a great job still holding on to the lead. We have Roberto Frizzero we got to see earlier on out on the dirt, doing a great job out here in the oval too. So, I mean, I expect if we have any more oval races, I know we have another one coming out for NASCAR. I'm hoping to see some of these guys out there as well for that. So we keep it now. Vinny Dean in first, Roberto Frizzero in second, and Simon Demori in third place currently. Lap number 4, and now going into lap number 5.
Yeah, and if we could find a static cam, as you can see right now, a static cam, just how fast these cars are going through the oval there, giving a bit of camera shake as well. And 390 kilometers an hour, absolutely nothing to sneeze at. In fact, just because of how fast they're going, the margin of error that these drivers are afforded is so minuscule, and the potential for something absolutely massive to happen is always going to be there. So these drivers are going to have to do their best to keep a level head, make sure they're racing cleanly, don't get involved into anything, because if you get involved in a crash, chances are that's it. You can't ever get back into the race here.
Yeah, and I'm looking now. So some of these guys now trying to make their moves. I see David Toth out there in the back now. Unfortunately, Pedro Dean falling back a few positions. He was on the outside but had no one. Like we said, folks, the draft is just that important out here at Daytona. Once Pedro Dean just slightly got out of line, David Toth seeing that, and now David Toth making another move right here. So going for that 4th place position on the inside. Like we said, definitely having that experience out in the Pro IndyCar Series. David Toth showing that experience of when to overtake, definitely when to be patient, when to sit back. But now it looks like that might leave Jackson Sanjay. He needs to get back in line. I know he wants to be able to pass, take that, but you can't be too overzealous out here. You can't be too aggressive out on these longer ovals in the IndyCar. I mean, even in the stock cars, those ones, you get a little bit closer, a bit of bump drafting going on that you don't see in the Indy cars, but nonetheless, these guys still need to be hanging onto the rear bumper of the guy in front of them, really just kind of having to wait if someone is going to make a move. It's very opportunistic out here, so that's definitely going to be the strategy for most of these drivers. So far, we've seen David Toth already up 6 positions, so he had the biggest gainer on the day so far. But like we said, especially a lot of that, these drivers I think are starting to figure out pretty quick, you know what, trying to make a move, I'm going to get all of that washed out air, and that's really going to be it for me. I'm not going to have much of a room. So these guys are going to have to plan their passes either a couple corners behind or just wait for the littlest of mistakes from the drivers ahead of them.
Yeah, and with 60 laps to navigate through before the end, it really comes down to whether or not these drivers can hold their focus all the way to the end. Because, as I mentioned, margin of error, very, very tiny. You lose concentration even for a millisecond, you could end up in the barrier or completely out of the race here. Those drivers, I think what's on their mind specifically is not really whether or not they can plan any overtaking moves. It's just keep it together all the way until the end, and if an opportunity presents itself, then seize it. But otherwise, just keep your pace. Try not to get overzealous. Try not to go for any brazen moves that might put you or any of the other races at risk, and just drive your best. And you can see just how close these cars are. In fact, this is the closest we've ever seen an AMX grid from 1st to 11th, less than a second separating all of these cars. So really, it's the closest we've seen in AMX so far.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the driver cams there as well. You can see pretty much these guys on comms. That's definitely going to be a big help for them out there on the oval. But just the absolute look of concentration on every single one of these drivers' face. You know, they're out here to have a good time, but at the same time, they're out here to win a race. So, like I said, some of these guys may have decided, you know what, I will just watch a race. I will go ahead and spot for you. Like we've seen the teammates out here, Drago Racing, Delete the Esports. Trying to see out there Roberto Frizer, who he's with, I can't tell right now, but still a lot of great action going on. Like we said, sometimes I think at this point of view for some of the guys out there saying, all right, they're only turning left, definitely on the oval races, a lot of it comes down to strategy. I'd say this is definitely in the Pro Series, something that is an absolute team effort, coming down to getting your setup perfect in the Pro Series. Also, we do have big setups out here in iRacing, so it's a bit more even, coming down to just driver skill, driver knowledge out here. But like I said, a lot of IndyCar races, it is a team effort out here. So definitely now Vinny Dean holding it down still in 1st place, followed by Simone Demori in 2nd. So again, Damon, I think it's going to come down to when these drivers pit. They might, again, try to work together with a teammate. I don't really see there going to be any undercuts or overcuts going out here. I think everyone's going to try to stick together with the pack. Again, what we've seen just even slightly getting out of the draft, how hard it is to really get back in line. So I don't expect these drivers to really hit the pits unless everyone's going in.
Yeah, definitely looks like it, because if you're out of the draft and on a track like this, you lose like 20 Ks of speed compared to everyone else in draft. So stepping out is basically a death knell for your race if you don't sync up with the rest of the drivers here. And on the topic of course, driving racing is going to be a team effort. You need to have spotters. You need to have people helping you monitor the condition of your car because you can't afford to be really multitasking when it comes to sort things like this. You have to have eyes on the road 100% of the time, and all your focus has to be making sure that you don't end up in a compromised position. So far, these drivers are doing pretty well for themselves. Vinny Dean, of course, still holding that lead very well for himself. Oh, I just jinxed him. He just hit the flat top and immediately gets spun out. And he's into the barriers. I think that's pretty... Oh, I think he saved it, actually. It didn't look like he had too much damage, but... Commentators could strikes again.
Man, that's already like the second or third time today, Damon, that's happened. But yeah, so just like that, though, we get to see absolutely Vinny Dean going too much onto the apron. And in these cars, you can get away with it a bit on the NASCAR vehicle. So in the Cup cars, you can definitely take that line, even whenever these guys run the road course out here too, going on that inside apron. You can kind of hit it, but with these cars, you have to be extremely careful because the biggest thing is you have to be so smooth on your steering inputs on these cars. But just like that, Vinny Dean, I mean, he's trying to get back into this one, but again, it may not be the worst idea to just try to hit the pit stop. That way, when everyone comes back out, if you time it just right, he could get back into the lead of this race. So again, a lot of it might come down to timing. We'll have to just wait and see what he does. But again, it's so hard. You're going to be losing so much time out here on your own now. He's 13 seconds back, 12 seconds. So we'll just have to wait and see where he falls out here. Again, Simon Demore running that beautiful Aero McLaren livery on that vehicle. Of course, I think probably one of my favorite drivers out there, Pato O'Ward, in the Indycar this season. Great to see a lot of things going on out there. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff. If people talking about drama earlier, Damon, you mentioned that, you know, every single motorsport has their own thing. So not really that one may have better drivers than the other, just different sets of skills. But we may be seeing very soon. I know there's a bit of drama about Kyle Larson saying he's a bit better than Max Verstappen overall. I know that was a pretty controversial thing, but I mean, a lot of these drivers say they're good in their own sport. So we may be seeing, as there's talks of McLaren giving Kyle Larson an F1 test possibly, just to even see, you know, how well he may do, as well as him getting Indy 500 seat. So definitely it'd be awesome to see that. I know a lot of stuff going on in F1 as well. Some of these drivers leaving. I know Danny Ricciardo leaving out now that Red Bull's getting back in, but there we see the picture replay down on the bottom right. So yeah, Vinny Dean, I mean, he just went on just barely touching that inside apron, and luckily that could have been a lot worse. So a great job from the other drivers not getting involved in that crash. He skids it out, heats up those tires, and good thing there could have been a lot more damage in that one.
Yeah, that slide manages to scrub off enough speed so that he ends up not really taking any damage whatsoever, and is actually doing a pretty good job of catching back up to the rest of the train. So I wouldn't count him out just yet. We're still about a third of the way into the race yet. Anything can happen. You can see just how much time he is still making up. So yeah, I'm not counting him out just yet, but of course we're gonna have to see if any of the other drivers makes a mistake that he can capitalize on.
And I think right now, going with the strategy, what it looks like these guys are saying, I know some people out in chat were thinking the same thing, that they're going to wait until the last possible moment to get in there, hit the pits, and then come out with just enough fuel. Again, I think that may be where some of these guys are in oval races. At plenty of times, races can be won or lost in the pits. So I think that may be the strategy out here. Again, if you have your spotter, if you have someone out there helping be your crew chief, that may come into play, as well as, like we mentioned earlier, David Toth in the Pro Series having that experience as well. Not really racing out here at Daytona, but some other oval races showing it. Simon Demore still doing a great job holding on to that first place position. Roberto Frizer now looking like he's getting a little bit impatient right there behind David Toth. I'm not sure if he's going to try and signal somehow to some of these other guys and really maybe try and get two moves on here. I think that's really the big one. A lot of people know the Indy 500 out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, another super fast track, but it does not have the crazy banking like we have out here today. So that makes it a little bit easier, but now a few drivers looking like they're going to hit the pit lane. So here we go. That's Frizer, and looks like we have the number 5 out there as well of Gerard Sardeni. So I'm wondering if those two are working together a bit, trying to get back out here, saying, all right, as now Jackson Sanjay goes for the overtake. So Here we go, folks. We are a third of the way through this thing, and now the pit strategy will start coming into play.
Yeah, the train was broken, and Jackson Resende took it as an opportunity to go hit the gas. We can already see that over the last couple of laps, the drivers have kind of really been relaxing their pace a little bit, because you can see they're doing like 43-second laps compared to the normal 39 to 40 seconds that we've come to expect. So they're definitely letting off a bit. Don't want to waste too many resources until the very end. They want to save as much as possible for that final sprint. But Jackson Resende said, no, everyone's going way too slow. I'm just going to take my chance and go for it right now. But it looks like he's going into the pits as well. No, it doesn't look like he just lost a bunch of positions there. Not sure what happened to make him give away there, but he is taking the position back from Simon Demori, and David Toff right now shooting to the front of the pack. The 3 cars that entered the pits earlier on are now leaving as well. So Haras Hadeni going to be pretty far back compared to everyone else there, which leaves the grid down to 8 cars up until, of course, they make their pit stop.
And I seen there David Toth getting right on the yellow line, so it looked like he almost dipped his wheels into the apron. So a little made him a bit nervous there, but I think that's starting to leave a bit more room now for Jackson Sanjay, Simone Demori, kind of start planning what they're going to do. Again, at this point in the race, I think that's one thing you kind of want to do is really be patient, because not only is fuel going to come into play out here today for heat number 1 for sure, but also the tire wear. As these guys are going on, whenever you guys are running this at 380 kilometers an hour and over for 23 laps already, those tires are getting hot. They're starting to wear out. So definitely this is where the I'd say really just David Toth having that experience over some of these guys has kind of led him to be in first place right now as well. Like I said, Jackson Senjay, got Simon Demori still doing a great job. I think these guys as well maybe trying to save a bit of fuel, just hanging on to that draft, not pushing it too hard. However, when you're doing that and you're in the draft out here, you're going to be cooking those tires just a little bit more as well. So it's really a fine balance out here, dancing out in the oval, also reading the other drivers, waiting for the mistakes. Whenever you are thousandths of a second, hundredths of a second to your next driver in terms of how fast your pace is, that just means you're going to have to be that much quicker on your feet whenever there's an opportunity. And so far, David Toth, Jackson Senjay taking those opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. And with cars being this close, if anyone makes a mistake, the reaction time that you are afforded is absolutely minuscule. So you're going to have to be very good at predicting what's going to happen, or just be very, very quick at reacting, faster than cats, as a matter of fact. So yeah, I definitely see it holding on to this point, but of course, as you mentioned before, the main strategy will be the pit strategy. If these drivers end up pitting together, we could see them battle as a 3-way group all the way until the very end, but we cannot discount the cars that are behind them as well, all the way until T8, the car of Fabrizio Balziti, less than a second separating 8 cars, which really makes it quite difficult to react in case of emergencies. But it also gives time. Maybe someone gets impatient, maybe they try to push all the way forward and slingshot. We'll have to wait and see. We are 26 laps in right now.
Yeah, and I'm kind of listening now that we're on board with Simon Demori, as we see Jackson Senji now pulling to the outside. Not sure what happened there. Yeah, that's very interesting. He's seen Simon Demori, but back to what I was saying, I know Demori was right on the throttle. He kept lifting just slightly, so I'm not sure if now Jackson Senji just say, oh, you know what? I've been pushing it a little bit hard to get up into this position. I think I'm just going to dial it back, maybe just a position, just to try and get there. Also not sure if he's going to try and if he's working together with anyone else out there on the track. You know, like I said, that comes into play as well. Or Simon Demori was having to really just lift off the throttle quite a bit on some of those. I mean, it's always kind of hard whenever you have just like the engine roaring so loud. But definitely I think Simon Demori may just be wanting to push it again, waiting for that perfect moment to come out here. At this point in the race, though, they are definitely starting to feel a little bit of that tire wear on those tires. So that is another thing that I will say with David Toth. For the Pro IndyCar Series, those guys also have to hit the pits. So definitely knowing when and where to pit, using that to your advantage will definitely come into play out here. So We'll have to see. Already a few drivers hit the pits. Quite a few of them still out trying to hold into the train. It's only 3 drivers now. Of course, Roberto Frizer, Vinicius Dean now showing about a lap down. Vinny Dean, unfortunately, having that incident earlier on, just getting a little bit too close to the apron, spinning out. Now about 3 laps down from the leader.
Yeah, and you brought up an interesting point, which is I don't really know how long these tires can last. Will they last the entire race, or will they end up having to switch tires by the time they enter the pits?
No, absolutely. I mean, coming out here 60 laps for heat number 1, it definitely would be the smart thing to go into the pits, especially, like we said, 60 laps on a long track like Daytona. Definitely, when they go in, and that's why I said, I think these guys are really going to be waiting in till the last moment. That might be the strategy. That way they can get as much fuel as they need and be able to have just enough time to get the tires off, get a new set on there. Of course, IndyCar, in the ovals, they only have 1 tire compound, so it's not like when you're in an IndyCar out on the road track, you have a couple different tire compounds. These guys only have 1 same set of tire compounds out here, as well as you can notice visual difference from these vehicles have a little bit different rear spoiler when they're out on the ovals, a lot less downforce than whenever they're having to hit it pretty fast out on the road courses. So it's great whenever you see them out on like the Indianapolis road course, or even if we were out on the Daytona road course too, where you get a little bit of the oval in there, a little bit of the road course, a lot of long straights. But for right now, like I said, David Toth doing a great job kind of setting the pace out here. Simon Demore, I think he knows with this guy right in front of him saying, okay, he already has this experience in the Indy cars around the oval. I'm just going to try to mimic what he does, maybe try to get a little bit less fuel. And again, pit strategy is going to be everything out here today for heat number 1.
Yeah, and you definitely also want to make sure that when you're doing these high speeds, you want to avoid putting it onto the apron. And here comes Pedro Dean shooting forward, slingshotting, and it looks like Simon Demore is taking up the challenge as well. He also goes for the slingshot past David Toff here. Will he be able to cut him out? It doesn't look like it will be able to, and you can see just immediately once we get into a heated battle like this, how the speed just starts climbing rapidly. They were averaging about 360 per lap, but as soon as the gloves come off, you can see another 20Ks, 30Ks just come up there. And immediately, the amount of concentration required just sharply increases. And Simon Demore still holding on pretty comfortably to that P2 position, but now he has to catch back up to Pedro Dean. And David Toff is not letting up. He too is taking part in this battle as well, and they're going all out right now.
So just like that, like you said, quite literally gloves coming off, but once again there, David Toth just getting the side draft, having a better exit now coming on into turn number 3, going side by side, and we have 2 cars. We might have to get different camera angles, see what's going on. I think things are definitely heating up a bit more, you know, starting to fall into a trance there on the onboard cameras, but now a couple more drivers. So Simon Demore, Pedro Dean now going for the inside. Definitely, I was going to say this earlier, David Toth, I think what he was doing was definitely saving fuel. So just like that, I was expecting Simon Demore to stick with him, but no, we have Gael Valero now in second place, Evandro Dantas, Ralph Benitez. So this is going to make it interesting now. I think these guys know next lap, probably it's time to pit now that they start seeing it again. How much were these drivers saving fuel just hanging out in the draft, kind of doing it? Definitely oval races out here. The longer the race, the more atrocious it's going to be, and the more you have to have that strategy. So now Gael Valero, we have these guys going in. David Toth definitely waiting one more lap. We have Ralph Benitez right behind him, as well as Simon Demore still in the pit lane. So I think David Toth definitely might have the thing. Gael Valero going one more lap out there. Evandro Dantas sticking with him. So now the grid is really about to start spreading apart.
Yeah, and you can basically start tracking exactly how long they end up hitting for, because depending on how much fuel you need to top out, as well as swapping the tires, you could be in there for an entire lap. So the drivers that are still staying out will probably end up over a lap over you. As here comes Gael Valero, as well as I'm not sure whose car that is, but they are going into the pit there. That is the car of Evandro Dantas. So now they're in the pits, which leaves a couple other drivers that out. Actually, looks like Simon Demore is the only driver that's not gone to. Just weird, because I'm pretty sure I saw him go into the pits earlier on. So not 100% sure, but of course, Here comes Sardeni. He is pulling ahead of everyone now.
So just like that, that is all of the drivers have now hit the pits. And like I said, Raj Sardeni, yeah, now we'll have to see exactly where comes back out. I know a lot of these drivers, they want to stick with at least one or two other cars in there. That way, when they get back out on here, folks, we are only halfway through this heat number 1. So definitely the draft is going to come back in. Although Raj Sardeni now 11 seconds over Jackson Asenge, with Jackson and Pedro Dean kind of working together a bit out here. David Toth going to be start catching up now. Belziti, all of these guys really going to probably not want to fight too much, really try to get into a train forming. That way they can catch back up to the leaders. So I think that's what David Toth is. Once again, he knows how much fuel he can save, how much he can push it. Fabrizio Balziti, we've seen typically being a pretty aggressive driver out here, trying to just take every position. And like I said, sometimes that works out, sometimes not so much. As now too, we have Evandro Dantas, Vinny Dean now hitting the pit exits. I think Vinny Dean as well was just trying to wait in the pits a little bit longer, trying to get back in, slotted right there with the rest of the drivers. Of course, Vinny Dean having that unfortunate incident earlier on in the race, just spinning out a bit. I'm a bit surprised that, like I said, these drivers are being pretty safe out here today. You know, there hasn't really been any other incidents other than that one from Vinny Dean, and that one wasn't there wasn't any contact with any other vehicles. So far so good out here in heat number 1, but definitely with less than half of the race to go, these drivers are going to start feeling it. Right there, David Toth, Fabrizio Balziti over Pedro Dean. So still, like I said, they're going to have to work together if they want any chance of getting back up into that top spot.
Yeah, and that's the thing with having staggered pit stops is that once you're out on the track and you're all alone in that island, you just don't have the speed to catch back up to the rest of the pack. So every time there is a pit stop, at least 2 or 3 drivers go in. These 2 drivers will end up needing to help each other draft their way back into the train. And you can see already the gaps between all the drivers are really staggered. I'm not sure if Sardeni, he went into the pits quite early on, so he's actually doing pretty well for himself, staying out ahead. However, with the early pit, I'm suddenly not so sure that he has enough fuel or tires to carry him all the way to the end. So we might see a position change at some point during this latter half of the race.
Yeah, definitely. So, like you said, Gerard Sardeni pitted on lap number 19 along with Roberto Frizer. So, Frizer, unfortunately, it's not looking too good for him right now. Currently sitting at about 6th place. So, it worked out for Sardeni, now leading the race. But like you said, if anything, it's going to be cutting it pretty close coming to the end of the race. Especially, the other thing to keep in mind is tires. He had about a 7.5 second pit stop. So, a lot of these guys out here, too. Gael Valero, Evandro Dantas having the longest pit stops. So they were in there for a minute. Like I said, part of that, though, is the strategy of, hey, if they would have gotten out later, they would have just been wasting fuel, wasting tires, not been in a draft with anyone else. So I think part of that, again, this is where it's very crucial to have that strategy to try to get back in a train with some of these cars. That way, again, you're competitors, but you need to work together at some point. Otherwise, you're going to be just battling back and forth and start losing even more time. So Gerard Sardeni is going to be hoping that these guys keep battling it out there for 2nd place. As now Fabrizio Balziti finally side by side. We'll see if they get 2 trains going. It's looking like right now that inside line is going to be the one to take. So Balziti now on the outside, starting to lose position after position, Damon.
Yeah, Belziti was pretty sprightly when he tried to go for the opportunity, which means he's jumping up to P4 right now. So all things considered, still in a pretty good spot. He is still holding on to the tail of both David Toff and Jackson Resende here. Resende, of course, did join the lobby for AMX ZERO, but ended up not taking part. So he's basically completely fresh coming into this race. We'll have to see whether or not he'll be able to hold it to the end as we enter the final third right now. And suddenly, all the drivers that we kind of pegged to be, as we mentioned, that Sardeni goes into the pits a 2nd time. So maybe he did not have enough fuel to keep going. And that means Jackson Resende and all the other drivers are going to make it past him. So he's going to have to time his pit stops. Doesn't get separated from the train too badly.
Now we also have Ralph Benitez coming out of the pits as well. So that's already 3 drivers that have hit the pits twice. Again, not exactly sure what's going on with Simon Demore. We did see him go into the pits saying he has 0 pit stops, but once again, yeah, like I said, not sure what happened there. If we'll have to probably catch back up. I don't know if we might have to get a replay on that one, but definitely very curious to see what happened. Now still Jackson Assange, David Toth, however, going for the lead. So Fabrizio Balzini now dropping back into 3rd place. These guys, now it is going to be the race. I think from here, again, is the experience of David Toth going to best these other guys, or are they going to just have a one-up out here? It's still anyone's race out here, folks. Heat number 1, we are on lap number 43 of 60. It's still David Toth, Jackson Assange, Fabrizio Balzini, all battling for the lead.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to start seeing the drivers formulate their attack plan for the last 10 laps of this race, because remember, these drivers are lapping this course in around 30 seconds per lap, so 10 laps is not a lot of time for them to really mount an attack. And you can see Jackson Resende that he's going for it right now, trying to make it past David Hoff. Is doing a pretty good job. Will he be able to cut him off from the overtake again? Yes, he will. Now Jackson Resende leading the train. David Hoff goes behind with Belziti, Rizal, and Pedro Dean as well. In this 5-car train, they're coming up to the back marker right now, so they might get slowed down just a little bit. But for the time being, Jackson Resende out in front. He is in the most disadvantageous position for the time being. Sometimes some might feel that it's a bit too early for this attack.
Yeah, again, like we said, right here, I think there's still plenty of time left in this race. So although these drivers want to kind of get up in the front of the pack, definitely now, as we can see, David Toth kind of shifting back and forth between 5th and 6th. So you know he's thinking about it. He's definitely thinking of, okay, if I get ahead of Jackson right now, I can really set the pace. Again, out here in these being fixed setups, they might have to drive it a little bit differently than they would at a super long oval race like they normally. So I think typically with some of the setups, you're pretty much out in 6th gear, just flat out the entire time. But as we can see here, like I said, David Toth's kind of switching back and forth, trying to stay really just into that power band as much as he can. For Jackson Assange right now, pretty much the one to set the pace going in through here. But we'll have to see as we stay on board with David Toth, Jackson Assange. Fabrizio Balzini is still right behind him, as well as Roberto Frizer and Pedro Dean. So right now, it's a 5-way train going on for the lead. A lot of these guys, I'm curious what happened as well with Guy Valero now 2 laps down, already had to take 2 pit stops. So few drivers hit the pits twice, now a couple laps down. Not sure what happened there, Damon.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That is very interesting that Gal Valero also went into the pits, because it felt like his last pit stop wasn't too long ago. Not 100% sure what happened there. Maybe he ended up not taking enough fuel, which is why he ended up so far back. But that is entirely speculation. The battle right now that is in front of us is his 5-car pack, as Roberto Frizer also goes into the pits for a second time. So I guess fuel definitely is going to be a bit of a problem for these drivers here. Meanwhile, the cars of David Hoff and Jackson Resende are still holding on to this podium spot, with Belziti close behind and Pedro Dean not letting up ever since the start of the race. He's doing his best to really play bystander and wait for an opportunity to strike.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind, like I said, is I'm not sure how many of these drivers may have taken tires, may have stayed on the same tires. So again, that might be coming into play here. Like I said, it's really a delicate balance of fuel and tires, as well as, hey, since everyone was so spread out taking their pit stops, typically on oval races, that's what you want to do. Try to be at least within a lap or 2 of all the other drivers. But like I said, only 11 drivers out on the grid today, making it a lot more difficult for these guys to either try to go out for the overcut or try to go for the undercut, try to pit maybe a little bit early. Like I said, typically if you have 30 cars or more out on the track, it makes it a lot easier. You'll have a lot more guys trying to run a similar strategy to you. So definitely, I think today, you know, not as many teammates out on the grid, not as many cars that we may see for an oval race. It is kind of, like I said, before the race started, it's going to be interesting, and interesting it definitely has been. As right now, still Jackson Assange leading the pack, P1, David Toth, Fabrizio Belziti, and now Pedro Dean getting into this fight. Everyone, it's still pretty much any of those guys for the win, as we have about 10 laps left out here in heat number 1.
Yeah, but I just noticed this more curiously is that Valero just went into the pits for a third time. I really don't know what's going on there. We're not going to speculate as well, but it really put a damper on his performance for this particular heat. Not sure whether or not it was intentional or whether he didn't mean to, but yeah. So right now we're just paying attention to this 4-car battle in front of us. Of course, Roberto Fizel going into the pits pretty much guarantees that he is out of the competition, out of the running for the time being, unless the 4 drivers in front also take a second pit stop.
Yeah, so Gael Valero, I mean, kind of his heat number 1 is in the bags. I think once he hit that second pit stop, he kind of knew, all right, I think this race is pretty much done and dusted. So I think right now he's just going to hit the pits, get back out there just to try and make sure that he can get pole position for heat number 2 and kind of have that redemption out there in heat number 2. But still right now, Jackson Asenji still doing a very good job. Again, I think at this point, not sure if David Toth, Fabrizio Balziti, Pedro Dean, if any of those guys are trying to do just a little bit of fuel savings just to make sure, again, enough to keep up with the leader, but also save enough tires, save enough fuel to really have a good run on those last final couple of laps. So I think everyone out here, that is definitely where my prediction is going to be. The last couple of laps, these guys are going to absolutely have to turn it up to 11. Will Jackson Asenji have enough in the tank? Will he have enough tire life left on that vehicle? We're only about 7 laps from finding out.
Yeah, really crazy thing that we're already so close to the end of the first heat. I felt like it took a while, but now we're here, less than 7 laps. So I'd say about 3.5 minutes left to really formulate an attack plan and then execute it. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see, because overtaking is such a treacherous thing here. We've seen it happen a couple of times, but when all these cars are really in the same condition, low fuel, maybe a bit of tire wear, it sort of amplifies the danger of trying to make an overtake happen.
There we go, folks. Like I said, only about a couple minutes left out here. Just a few laps left out on track. We're going out here for 60 laps for heat number 1. Like I said, out in heat number 2. Going to be a little bit shorter race for that one. A little bit less points on the line. So these drivers, knowing that they have a lot more points on the line, double the points in heat number 1. Definitely, it's going to be interesting to see where they go now. Trying to go 2 by 2. There goes David Toth making the move. We'll have to see if he can make a stick over Jackson Asenji. A beautiful move right there, as we can see. Just, man, textbook. Again, swerving back and forth, trying to not give too much draft back to Jackson Asenji. Jackson trying to take the inside line. Now these guys trying to get side by side again. Jackson Asenji has the inside line. David Toth falling right back. And this, folks, right here, this is what IndyCar Oval is all about. It is coming down to the line. These guys turning it up. Of course, it's going to come down to the very end, in my opinion. Fabrizio Balziti taking advantage of those guys swerving so much up ahead of them. So here we go, folks. It's going to be a close one out here. It's now a 3-way battle for the lead. Still Jackson Asenji doing what he can to pull away. However, knowing David Toth, he's just going to be setting up that final lap run.
Now this is what I call racing. Less than a minute left until the end of the race here. And finishing positions, Jackson Asenji is just pulling away from the rest of the field, and not being in the draft will make it pretty difficult for them to catch back up. As I say that, it's a bit too soon, as here comes David Toth. He's not giving up. Less than 30 seconds left. He's going to try and make a move. Jackson Asenji ended up on the apron there. He's going to lose it. He's going to bottle it. He ends up spinning right at the very end. Managing to save the car, does he? Ooh, coming to the barrier, and that is it for Jackson Asenji. So close to the end, and that's such a shame.
But like we said out here, looking for Pedro Dean now going to the outside. So it's going to come down to the line, folks. We have Pedro Dean, David Toth, Fabrizio Balziti all going for the win out here. Now 2 lines going, shutting it through the inside. We still have Pedro Dean holding on to it. David Toth gets rear-ended right there for Fabrizio Balziti, but it gives him the bump to get into the lead. And across the checkered flag we go. David Toth with, I'm not sure, the unintentional help of Fabrizio Balziti. It looked like Balziti was wanting that win, but as well with having lapped traffic there getting involved, it really put a damper in things. But nonetheless, David Toth showing his experience out here, showing his patience, as well as Pedro Dean, a great run, nearly having it at the very end. Fabrizio Balziti getting into the end. That is definitely going to be one of those for the social medias, for the highlights, the replay of that. Man, like we said, we knew it was going to come down to the line. I did not expect it to happen like that.
What an unfortunate thing that happened to Jackson Resende when you're facing down the clock. Just losing it at the very last moment there must feel absolutely terrible for him. But here are your provisional results, of course, coming out to the screen right now. David Toff getting a little bit of a bump draft near the end there from Pedro Dean, which means that he gets P1, Pedro Dean P2, Belziti holding on to that P3 for quite a while. Herat Sadeni in P4, Jackson Resende looks like he's down to P5. Not sure whether or not that would be accurate, but we'll have to find out later on. But then we have Roberto Fiza, Simon De Mori, Evandro Dantas, Ralph Benitez, Vinicius Dean, and Gael Valero. So drivers at the back half of the pack are going to be on a bit of a recovery drive here, or redemption drive, so to speak. Damn. It's kind of hard to see something like that happen at the very end of the race, and I'm still kind of hung up on it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these drivers, like we said, definitely came out here looking to put their name up on the board. Of course, David Toth, Jackson Sanjay. I mean, I thought it was going to be down between the two of them, and then Pedro Dean finding his way through the slipstream, able to slingshot back up into the lead all the way down to the line. So, I mean, quite honestly, I hope we get to see that again for heat number 2. That would be absolutely amazing. Who it's going to be this time around, though, I'm not too sure, as we've seen a lot of guys hit the pits twice, hit the pits even 3 times, having to fall all the way to the back. Now Gael Valero is going to be leading it, as well as Vinny Dean. Vinny Dean had a great lead run until he hit the apron and spun out in heat number 1. So, I mean, again, I think once again it's going to be anyone's race out here. We're a little bit shorter, only 42 laps this time. We'll have to see, though, because the guys were pitting around 31, 32, 33 laps last time. So just over 30 laps, a lot of these drivers decided to pit. I'm not sure. Like we said, heat number 2 does not have a mandatory pit stop like heat number 1 did. But will these guys have enough fuel? Again, it might just come down to the leader. I think, again, experience is definitely going to come into play here. So although David Toth's going to be sent all the way to the back, he knows how much he can save fuel. Might be trying to go for that undercut. These guys up front might be very aggressive. Again, a lot of IndyCar racing. Once you hit the oval, it is up to kind of reading what the other drivers are doing to really finalize what your strategy is going to be.
Yeah, definitely. And as you mentioned, no mandatory pit stops this time around, but these drivers are probably still going to feel like they have to take one to take on extra fuel and maybe change tires as well. But we're about to wrap up the formation lap with Gael Valero and Vinicius Dean leading the charge. We'll have to see whether or not history can repeat itself with the drivers of Pedro Dean, as well as and I forgot already. God, sorry, completely lost my train of thought there. David Toff, yes, that's the guy that would ended up starting for the back this time around. So yeah, we'll have to see if history repeats itself. And here it goes. The pace car is now going into the pits, which means these drivers are going to go green in just a moment, trying to see who gets the best start off. And it looks like Gael Valero is doing pretty well for himself right now, but Vinicius Dean can't say it the same for him. Ralph Benitez takes away the position, and Simon De Mori comes up behind him as well. So immediately, Vinicius Dean is on the top, so he has to rejoin the train if he wants to stay with the rest of the pack.
Absolutely, and out here too, we'll have to see Gael Valero. We know he's no stranger to the oval. We've seen him out there in NASCAR vehicles before, but coming out in the IndyCar, definitely a drive it pretty similar, but a little bit different at the same time. So we'll have to see where he comes out on here. We know he definitely is one of the most consistent drivers. So like I said, I think him going in for that last pit stop just said, all right, I'll go ahead and finish the race. Go ahead, come back out on the track, get pole position. So now Gael Valero will be setting the pace for this race. I think, again, we'll have to see what the guys towards the back of the pack, Pedro Dean, David Toth. Pedro Dean 1 lap down now. So again, we'll have to catch back up with him. But as you can see, everyone out there at home, again, feel free to scan the QR code on screen and get the live timing. See all of the data we get to see out here in the commentator's booth. But right now, still, I think these guys, knowing it's a bit more of a sprint race, really had to pay attention to where their fuel was last time. If they were able to push it, again, pit strategy may be the deciding factor again out here in heat number 2.
Yeah, and it's very rare to hear someone say that in a sprint race where pit strategy matters so much, but that's just how it is. When these cars are running at full throttle all the time, it really does eat up quite a lot of fuel. So yeah, you're right, pit strategy will probably have a bit of an effect here, but so far Gaio Valero still leading the charge right now. None of the other drivers are really going to make it opportunistic move this early on in the race. We're still only 4 laps in, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
So yeah, again, I think the other thing that these guys kind of got in there is how aggressive can they be? I mean, we got to see about halfway through the laps, just these guys really seeing, you know, whatever the pace that was being set. Again, now back on with Vinny Dean. These guys, once they're hitting these corners, kind of still swapping back and forth between 5th and 6th gears. So once again, kind of a bit, Vinny Dean almost making the same mistake he made in Heat 1, getting super close, touching the white line. We've seen really quick reactions right there. So, you know, he's starting to feel, all right, I need to still push it as much as I can, but absolutely watch the apron, as he does not want to have the same thing happen in heat number 2. That would be absolutely heartbreaking. So still holding on to a solid P4. You know, he's still down a couple positions from where he was at the straight, but like we said, right now with these drivers getting a bit in line, we'll have to see exactly where they go. Definitely going to have to watch fuel and tires for heat number 2, as like I said, we're kind of a bit in uncharted territory all day long out here at Daytona. Not typically a track you would see for IndyCar on the oval side of things. Usually the longest track is at the Indy 500. So we'll have to see now. Gael Valero setting the pace so far. The fastest lap being set by David Toth. So David Toth still sitting back in 10th place, but still having great pace. So again, I mean, at this point, everyone's just in a bit of a train. That's kind of what you have to do. Again, be absolutely patient and wait for the right move. Is now David Toth up one more position, up a couple positions, up into 8th place now.
Yeah, and you're right. We are in a bit of a lull state right now, but that's just because, David Toth there actually taking this opportunity to just slingshot to the top half of the pack, doing a brilliant job so far. We're not sure where he's getting all this speed from, but he is utilizing it to its full potential. All of a sudden, he's jumped from P10 to P3 in the space of an entire lap, and look at how fast he's going. 250 miles an hour, 400 Ks, immediately making the rest of the pack look like snails in comparison to him.
Yeah, just like that. So, I mean, again, he already seen, I think a lot of this is on the pace. Hey, where am I going to be at with fuel? Where am I going to be at with tires? All right, you know what? I can definitely just take this if I want to. So once again, the experience of David Toth just showing out here on track today. Now right in front of Gael Valero, but also Valero is smart enough to know, you know what, all I have to do now, instead of really worrying about my pace, worrying about things, I just have to hang on to the rear bumper of David Toth the entire time. And then once again, try to possibly go for the pit strategy for the win if they have to take the pits. So I think right now, Simon Demori also kind of was in a similar position in heat number 1, kind of hanging out towards the front of the pack. And then I think really the pit strategy is what made or break, what really made it for a lot of these drivers. Of course, David Toth, Fabrizio Balziti, Pedro Dean, and then Simon Demori kind of falling back a little bit too. So I don't think these drivers that pitted earlier are going to make the same mistake, Damon.
Yeah, I mean, really the only thing you have to be worried about at this point early on in the race is just keep it consistent, avoid any mistakes, and pretty soon you'll get your opportunity. So concentration again paramount for these drivers, but I'm willing to wager that some of them might feel a little bit tired by now because of how much you really need to concentrate in situations such as this. Simon Demori that you can see on screen right now still razor sharp in his focus. Yeah, just planning an opportunity. All these drivers look P1 and P7 all exceeding kilometers an hour. So they're really going all out right now, which leads me to believe that at some point in time, they're definitely going to have to stop for fuel.
Yeah, definitely. These guys pushing it a little bit more than they were in heat number 1. Again, I mean, I think, I know we've had this conversation, I think last time with Evan as well, for one of the endurance races, kind of getting a look at where the speed is on some of these cars. I mean, definitely seen out there that they're showing hitting already 400 kilometers an hour. I think at times the timing is a little bit generous with some of the speed out here. I mean, we'll have to confirm with some of the drivers again, but I think what we've seen from the live timing is some at certain points it's a little generous on how it calculates the actual top speed out here. Like I said, one different thing that we don't see as much in iRacing that they do, I mean, especially, you know, just because we're on a long track like this today, very reminiscent of the Indy 500, having super long course. For that, they go an average of your top speed through your laps in qualifying. So instead of just saying, okay, go out there, hit the fastest lap time, a lot of that is calculated by speed. So I'd be very interested to see if iRacing somehow implements that into the thing. Like I said, being a bit unique to IndyCar ovals, I'd love to see that out here. Just a little bit more realism in iRacing that they have in real life. But still right now, we are currently in lap number 12 of 42. So about a quarter, just over a quarter of the way through heat number 2. Gael Valero still doing a great job. Like I said, following David Toth's line nearly perfectly, holding a very consistent gap between that rear bumper. So I think right now it's just enough to have the perfect amount of draft, but not get too close in case David Toth makes a mistake.
Yeah, definitely there. And at this point in time, you have less than 0.2 of a second to really make a split decision to get yourself out of trouble if you're this close to one another. And Gael Valero, less than 0.05 of a second there, really is skirting the line between danger and Simon DeMori, probably realizing this, is hanging back just a little bit, but you have to be really careful that you don't end up breaking the train entirely just based off what the front half is doing. So I know Gael Valero, he's definitely going to try something, but when, I still don't know for sure.
Yeah, that too. I mean, really from this camera angle, you can see just how close Gael Valero is to David Toth. So I think once again, David Toth knows really just all he has to do is kind of the same strategy out in heat number 1. It paid off for him in heat number 1. He knew it was going to be a battle down to the line with Pedro Dean, Fabrizio Balziti, Jackson Asenji, unfortunately on the penultimate lap, just getting off course, almost completely crashing out. So luckily for him, he did not crash out on that one. So I think Jackson Senji too is being a little bit more patient than perhaps he was during heat number 1. Also, we might see if that's the strategy for some of these guys. I think, like you said, David Toth kind of slingshotted almost all the way from the back of the pack now into first place. But we'll have to see if Jackson Senji is going to try to do that same move, as well as Fabrizio Balziti. Pedro Dean now out of the draft, however. So Pedro Dean 13 seconds back, as now Gael Valero going for the pit. So, very interesting now. Things are going to get shaken up. About a third of the drivers now hitting pit lane. So just enough. I'd say 3 is probably a good number. 3 or 4 cars to really have enough of a train to get back out there and be competitive still. So everyone else going to probably be waiting for David Toth to see when he hits the pits.
Yeah, curiously, this is still quite early on in the race, so I'm pretty sure they still had a bit of fuel left or tires in order to keep the train going, but I guess I've been proven wrong, as Simon DeMori and Ralph Benitez are now doing the same thing, entering the pits. And it's really, really helpful to not be in the pits alone on a certain lap, because you always want someone there. You want the train to continue. You still want the draft, otherwise you're going to lose even more time to the cars in front of you. So having a pit partner, so to speak, is definitely going to be helping these drivers a lot. And Evandro Dantas, another driver to make it into the pits this time around.
So looking at this is almost a repeat of what we got to see in heat number 1. Simon DeMori take the lead just to go into the pits. David Toth staying out. Another one here. Vinny Dean now hitting the pits alone. So that might not have been the smartest move. But once again, I think these guys, yeah, it's really hard to tell what he's doing. I think if I was Vinny Dean, you probably would have wanted to stay with the pack in front of you, but I'm just not sure if he might have had just enough fuel. So I think this is where it's going to be right here. David Toth, Gerardo Sardeni, Roberto Frizer, definitely all trying to stay towards the lead. I think right now would probably be a now or never, knowing there's only 3 drivers left to pit. This is where I think they're going to probably hit the pits altogether.
Yeah, definitely looks like it. We'll see David Toff and Sardeni there as they're coming in, and looks like Frieza just ended up taking the opportunity to make it past. So does David Toff, but whether or not they'll end up in the pits later on, it remains to be seen. Looks like they're staying pretty clear of it so far. Ooh, dangerously close to contact there for the 2 cars in front, and Sardeni notices this, seizes the opportunity to go onto the top half of the course, but coming back down and staying within the train is still the goal. He doesn't want to scrub off too much speed when he goes in for the pass. Here he comes, pulling alongside Frizer there, and yeah, he's still right alongside them. Actually, I'm kind of scared. David Toff is playing spoiler for both of them, trying to block both of them, but Sardeni makes it through. Looks like Kyle Valero is also coming out 30 seconds behind, so he's in P4. Pretty good position, all things considered.
Yeah, right now we can just see with less drivers being in a train right now, really where these guys just having to battle it out. Of course, Roberto Frizer, Gerardo Sardeni, David Toth, those guys still your top 3, really having to just, again, see what these guys are going to do. Now we'll have to see where they come out of this. They're still not pitting, so they're quite a few laps over the rest of the pack. I think, that might be the strategy then for David Toth, Frizer, and Sardeni. All try to they know they have to stick together if any of them want a chance at winning this thing. So right now, we'll see, I think, as they start to slot back in line. Now trying to get past there, we see the number 7, Evandro Dantas, going to the outside. Fresher rubber, definitely will have a bit more pace over these guys. So again, we see Gerard Sardeni kind of peeking to the outside, maybe trying to see if he might try to get a draft on the outside. But once again, this is gonna shake things up once more. David Toth holding out to the outside. Not sure what that's about. Again, I'm not sure if he's seen how aggressive these drivers are being, and he's just gonna say, you know what, they're gonna make mistakes with Evandro Dantas getting in the mix of all these things. I'm gonna just back out a little bit and be patient, wait for the guys in front of me, see if, hopefully let Evandro Dantas kind of, again, lead the pack, use him as a draft. However, Evandro Dantas not in this fight right now for first place, but we'll have to see where he is once the top 3 pit.
Yeah, that sounds like a fair assumption here, and still don't know if they're actually going to pit or not. It looks like they're still staying out there, which is getting me curious as to why the other drivers ended up pitting. Was it fuel? Was it tires? Really can't tell, but kind of too late to make assumptions at this point in time. We just have to say that these 3 drivers in front are doing pretty brave to stay out in front for this long. And Frizer making it to the front of the pack now, but David Toff isn't letting go of this spot. He is trying to make it through as well, uses the slingshot to his advantage to make it past him. So we have 2 separate trains in front right now, and David Toff is going to try and cut Frizer off, and he does so. So still securing that lead for the time being, but all is going to be in the pit lane. We'll see what happens.
And like I said, just Evandro Dantas getting in the mix of your top 3, kind of shaking things down. Just a reminder, he is a lap down right now. So, is there almost a 3 wide? That could have been really bad going into turn number 3 right there. So definitely coming out of turn number 4. However, once they get onto the tri-oval out here at Daytona, that's one of the best places to really try and make a move, make that slingshot happen like we seen earlier with David Toth. And I think that's why we see so many great finishes out here at Daytona, just coming out of turn number 4, slingshotting it around the outside like we got to see in heat number 1. That exact same thing happened for the race win. David Toth able to take it home on that one. Now trying to make it to both heats out here, trying to win both of them, but like we said, it's going to be a close one. We know all the top 3 drivers have been swapping places back and forth, but I think right now, we mentioned it, the other drivers went in a little bit early in heat number 1. Kind of the same thing happened. The drivers that hit the pits early, and now David Toth, but the other 2 are leaving him to hang. Oh, this is going to be interesting right here. David Toth has to absolutely get out in front of the rest of the pack if he wants to really have any chance of winning heat number 2. So, like I said, Frizer and Sardeni, I have a feeling that those two are actually working together right now. Just seeing usually like that, David Toth leading, going to the pits by himself, that kind of seems to be the strategy. Don't let him get the satisfaction of having someone to draft out there, having a draft partner. So now, whoop, on the cold tire, doesn't look like he changed tires. So, or a little bit squirrely coming out of the pits. Like I said, these things have a lot of power, but still David Toth leading by about 5 seconds, and it's closing. So he's going to have to do his best to block Ralph Benitez out of here. Of course, Sardeni Frizer are going to have to pit eventually.
Yeah, definitely. And his best case scenario would probably be to try and cut them off, stay in front of the train so he can still get the draft as well and catch back up to the rest of the front runners. But as you mentioned before, these two drivers you see on screen right now, Frizer and Sardeni, have not yet hit it. So we'll have to see whether or not David can get the undercut as Frizer trying to make a move on the inside, goes for the slingshot, keeps it neat and tidy, makes it past Sardeni, and yet again it looks like they're not going to try and pit this lap. So they must be really patient, or they've been really, really good with their resource management.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, both of them really going to just have to work together to try and even get more of a gap over David Toth. Like I said, David Toth now slotting back in, Jackson Asenji right behind him. So that's the pit right there. Jackson Asenji now passing over David Toth. Again, right here, I think Avandro Danta's definitely way further behind than all the rest of these guys. But now we can see the two packs there. So the pack of 3, the pack of pretty much almost the rest of the field right in front of them. Right now, I think this may be the strategy. Wait until they can catch up to that lap traffic before they finally have to just take the pit stop. I mean, once they get into the lap traffic, it might just be slowing them down. Like I said, definitely from what we've seen, all the other drivers that have already pitted, definitely not thinking these guys have enough resource management to make it the entire 42 laps. Heat number 1, most of the guys around 31, 32 laps started pitting, and here we see Sardeni. So Frizer, again, maybe they're not working together like we thought they were, Damon, but as only one of them now hits the pits, again, not what you want to have happen. He's definitely going to have to time this absolutely perfect so he can get back out in the front of the pack.
Yeah, definitely. And David Toth is going to be pretty much pretty happy with that result, actually, because it pretty much means that he ends up getting ahead of Sardeni here. Sardeni is still staying in the pits, waiting, probably refueling. Not yet sure, but here comes David Toth. He makes it past Sardeni as well. Just about exiting the pits. Won't be able to do it. Was that? He's actually just disappeared into the pit lane. And Frizer finally looks like he's going into the pit lane, which means David Toth and Jackson Resende are free to take that position away from him.
So just like that, like I said, definitely the strategy coming out to play out here today. Frizer now heading out of the pits. He's going to have a bit of work to do as now these drivers are coming out there. Oh, Frizer are spinning out of the pits.
Oh, no!
So just like that, unfortunately, any chance that he had at the win is now gone, as he's going to have to just take it back, and now he's falling back on the pack. Not going to have anyone to get into the draft with.
Yeah, cold tires coming out of the pit lane there. You have to be really careful with your throttle. And ooh, that's another car that was very dangerously rejoining the track coming out of the pit exit. That is, I believe, Sardeni. So, yeah, very precarious positions here. And it really shows me that some of these drivers are starting to waver in terms of their focus. Kind of like missing important bits, missing important things they should be looking out for, and almost endangering the rest of the field.
And I think one of the big things to keep in mind is, a lot of these drivers, I'm not sure if, you get a little bit in the zone, maybe get a little bit bored, start losing focus whenever you're just in the draft for so long out here, just a bit of a train. Like I said, kind of oval race is a little bit more akin to an endurance race where you just have to keep your focus, keep a good solid pace the entire time. and as well coming down to the strategies. So, like I said, right now, Ralph Benitez, Jackson Asenge, the two Delete the Esports drivers, trying to have their redemption out here for heat number 2. Like we've seen, Jackson Asenge looking like he could have came away with the win into heat number 1, but then on the final lap just ended up spinning out of the race. So now these two guys definitely going to be trying to work together to block off David Toth, bring home that win for Delete.
Yeah, and it looks like they might be about to do it, but I was saying that now, I think I've just jinxed them a little bit. David Toff is still in P3, hanging behind them, and we know that he's an absolute unit at oval racing here. So can't count him out. Can't count Gal Valero out either. He's still holding on to that P4 spot. So with about 8 laps remaining in the race, this is going to get a little hairy, I think.
And just a quick reminder, so Ralph Benitez was quickest in qualifying by about 5 milliseconds over David Toth. So those two drivers in terms of pace are neck and neck. Ralph Benitez, David Toth. However, like I said, a lot of this coming down to the strategy, coming down to exactly when to push it, when to go into the pits, everything. And now David Toth doing a great job. Like I said, whenever Ralph Benitez, Jackson Senji, those guys hit the pits, they had a bit of a help to keep the draft up to get going, whereas David Toth really just had to get out of the pits and slot right in front of these guys. So these guys all doing a great job. I think right now, again, it's always hard in an oval race when you're up against two teammates, but like we said, the experience of David Toth being in the Pro Series has really pushing him and letting it shine out here in today's race. So a little bit of a swerve, trying to break the toe just a little bit from Jackson Senji. Again, I think right now, Damon, this is going to be a mind game the rest of the way, all the way to the checkered flag.
Yeah, 7 laps remaining. So another 3.5 minutes before the end of the race. 6 laps remaining, as a matter of fact. About to see all the way to the end. Jackson Resende is still holding on to that lead. David Toff is looking like he's slowing down a little bit. Must be out of the draft right now. But here comes Ralph Benitez. It's his turn to go for the attack right now. It looks like he's securing the position, but could it be too soon to call? Maybe just so. Gal Valero there, still waiting for an opportunity, but he is kind of out of the draft right now, so we don't know if he'll be able to catch up.
Yeah, one thing that we can always assure out at a super speedway is it is almost always going to come down to the final lap, the final turn, and I expect nothing less out here, but he'll have to see if there will be any team orders in play for Ralph Benitez and Jackson Asenge. I mean, both of them very capable of getting the win out here. Both of them doing amazing all day long out here today. I mean, Daytona, as we can see there, looks like one of the Deans, that might have been Pedro Dean now, just kind of letting go, saying, I'm already back. I don't want to get in anyone's way. But right now, too, David Toth still on the hunt, currently in 3rd place. Gael Valero trying to make up any positions that he can. Again, I think it's really these guys right here just knowing, and it looked like Ralph Benitez had maybe thought about the block up top, but he doesn't go for it. He tries to hold on to that bottom line now. And again, Jackson Asenge trying to slot it right in behind his teammate, not give David Toth the pleasure, but David Toth saying, thank you very much. I'm going to try to take back 1st place right now. So I think, again, it's about calculating on how many laps you have to go, how many positions, really just knowing what it takes to get that pass done on the last lap. I think right now for all of these drivers, they might just be thinking, either we're going to have to have the 2v1 out here with the Delinte versus Drago, or we're all going to just kind of be going down to the very last lap. So too soon to tell. Is now lap number 39 of 42. Things are about to heat up, folks.
Yeah, I don't know if too soon to tell is apt for this moment, because we're really down to the wire here. And Gal Valero there, just chilling in the back, just vibing while watching these 3 drivers absolutely gunning it for that P1 spot. And David Toff, he's going to be really, really careful with where he places his car later on, because he wants to get the slingshot. The side draft here gives him the burst of speed he needs to at least stay within touching distance of the 2 Delintes cars. But will he be able to actually make it past is the question right now. Tires okay, fuel's okay, 2 laps remaining. That means you have about a minute left to really go for it. And so now I can see David Toff, he is trying to go for it. Makes it past Benitez right now. Will he try to cut him off as No, but Benitez still pulling alongside side by side when David Toff is so dangerously close to that wall. It is actually harrowing to see whether or not they'll keep it together all the way until the end.
Yeah, I mean, just like that, knowing this car inside and out, how close he can ride the wall. So I think right now, definitely he's pushing with everything he has. We're on the penultimate lap now, 41 of 42. Still Jackson Assange looking pretty comfortable, knowing he has his teammate Ralph Benitez right there to kind of help block for him a little bit. Like I said, you probably don't want to be going for the bump draft out here in the Indy cars like we got to see at the last bit of the thing. But Fabrizio Balzini now slowly starting to catch David Toth as well. So now trying to find the inside line. David Toth still trying to hold the outside. Gael Valero getting in line behind him. Now David Toth coming back down on the inside, trying to kind of block off Balzini a little bit. He knows if he doesn't do it, but the white flag is flying, folks. This is what it comes down to now. Trying to get a bit of a side draft, going for the moves into turn number 1. Coming out of turn number 2. He's trying to slot back in, but Balzini or Sally Benitez doing a great job of trying to hold off. So David Toth now going for the lead side by side. They touch. Oh, a little bit of there. And David Toth still able to hold on to it, but Gael Valero able to get into the mix of things now. Folks, this is what it's about. We're going now into the last final couple of turns. Who's going to be? It's still Jackson Senji on the inside. David Toth getting a little bit of a tap back. Now we're going 2 wide, 3 wide almost now. Who's it going to be across the line? Balzini able to come through. And it's Balzini getting the last minute through the final turn. Balzini first place, Jackson Senji second, and David Toth third. Man, what a photo finish to finish out our IndyCar race out here today.
That was daylight robbery from Balzini, just coming in at the very end and just steal away the win from the four people that we thought were in contention for the first position. He just comes in, swoops it out, robs everyone of that, and wow, what an amazing finish. I don't think I've seen a finish that close since last season.
Yeah, and with that too, I mean, again, I'm not sure if David Toth had thought about, do I block here or do I keep it safe? It looks like he tried to just keep it safe on his line, but there was just enough room for Balzini to squeeze in, and you know he is happy about that one. Fabrizio Balzini, your BenQ session winner of heat number 2. All smiles right now, knowing that he just pulled off a great upset over the other 2 drivers. As well, Gael Valero getting in there. But first place, Fabrizio Balzini. Second place, Jackson Assange. Third, David Toth. Fourth, Gael Valero. Fifth place, we got Ralph Benitez. In sixth, Evandro Dantas. Seventh, Roberto Frizer. Eighth, Pedro Dean. Ninth, Gerard Sardani. 10th, Vinicius Dean. And rounding out 11th place, Simone Demori, with Gerard Sardani setting the fastest lap. So, man, a great, I mean, like we said, we knew it was going to come down to the checkered flag in both heats. Heat number 1, a bit of a bump. I think Fabrizio Balzini able to pull off that move for heat number 2. I think that was the same move that he was trying to go for in heat number 1, but unfortunately ended up giving David Toth a bit of a bump to the win instead of taking the win himself. But nonetheless, able to redeem himself out here. Man, almost at a loss for words on that one. I think this is really the moments that make oval racing one of the best sports, is always either the crashes or those amazing photo finishes. It never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah, it's either one or one or the other. It feels like there's no in between when it comes to AMX. But man, that race finish is going to be absolutely bonkers to talk about in an interview. We're not ready with the interviews just yet, but yeah, you're right. I'm completely lost for words. I don't know what to say. That was absolutely amazing. Nearly 4 cars wide going to the end, and somehow no one crashed. Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen someone going out towards the back of the pack there across the checkered flag, but yeah, I definitely expected it to be at least one of the top 4 drivers just touching wheels. We got to see that. I thought that was going to be in between Jackson Assange and David Toth. They touched wheels going into turns 3 and 4, but they're able to really just save that all the way down to the line. And again, that gave enough time for Balzini and Gael Valero. I almost thought for a second Gael Valero was going to slip right through the way Balzini did, but like I said, nonetheless, you never know what you're going to get at AMX. But one thing that you do know is it's going to be some great close battles like that. So, I mean, yeah, I really hope that we continue this on. Of course, guys, we got tomorrow as well. AMX 10 coming back. We're keeping it in the USA all weekend long. We're going to be out in the TCR cars, so make sure to tune in for that as well tomorrow. Next weekend, I'm looking forward to one because we have the iRacing Bathurst 1000. Got to check that out last night. Pretty good racing there, of course. Absolutely the Battle of the Mountain. We're going to be battling the mountain next Sunday as well. So a lot of great races coming up. I mean, so much on the calendar in so little time. I can't believe that we're already about 5 weeks into this thing, Damon.
Yeah, I know I've missed a couple of weeks, which is a shame because I really enjoyed watching AMX, as we all know, and talking over it and just interacting with the chat as well. It's going to be great, and I think I'm going to hand it back over to you because I believe the producers are telling me the interviews are ready.
Awesome. So we're going to see if we can talk to our heat number 1 winner, and it's so close down to the line. I can't wait to hear what happened from the perspective. So we're going to head into the interview room now, folks, and like I said, hopefully we get more of this coming up tomorrow. But for right now, heading into the interview room. So right now, we're joined here with David Toth. David, a big congratulations on that heat number 1 win. It came down to the line for heat number 2. I mean, while that's still on everyone's mind, what was going through your mind the last couple of laps? We've seen there was a bit of contact there for the lead. What did you think was going to happen coming out of turns 3 and 4 on the final lap?
Hey guys, yeah, it was a bit hectic race, the second one. I mean, I wanted to, side draft Jackson to have some momentum, but we had a collision and I had some damage, but I didn't feel anything. But my car was a bit maybe slower compared to a car without damage, So I wanted to just survive it. I was quite sure that if I don't crash, it will be a top 5 or something like that. And I would be lying if I said it was not scaring to go 4 wide into the finish line. But it was quite clean race and everybody was on point driving the car. So yeah, it was nice.
So I've got to see you out there in the Pro Series this year. How does that differ, having to fight your way all the way back from the grid, knowing we have a reverse grid? What's your mentality whenever you get into the heat, having to come all the way from the back?
Yeah, we have a mandatory pit stop because we can't make it on fuel, so everybody was just saving fuel, So in the second heat, it was quite easy to go at the front because, to be honest, I don't think anybody wanted to lead the pack, So it was not hard to go there, but staying there in the last lap is just pure luck. I would say that if you have a nice block, like I did it in the first race, then you can win the race. But yeah, it's quite chaotic, and you need a lot of luck to make it into the checkered flag without any damage.
Awesome. Well, it's always a great time, of course. Like we said, out here, able to come away with the AMX 20 championship last season. We know that you have a lot on your plate right now. So, David, like I said, once again, a big congratulations. That heat number 1 win again, really close, and heat number 2. Good luck out there for both the rest of the season with AMX as well as your Pro Series going on.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
So, like I said, it's always great to hear from these guys that have the perspective of coming out here from a different series, coming into AMX, using that experience, using just everything. I mean, like we said, oval racing, you never know what is going to happen out for AMX. We've got to see last season for the NASCAR race, Max Verstappen, and I mean, almost all of Team Redline coming out for that one. So we have another couple. Well, I guess we have another NASCAR race coming up later on in the season out at the Oval. So we'll have to keep an eye out on that, as well as seeing someone earlier when I mentioned, hey, we're going to be out getting some of the jumpy trucks out here this year. Some of the people in chat were excited about that, as well as myself. So we'll have to see. As now, Damon, I think we're getting in the official results so far from today's race.
Yeah, and overall winner, of course, is David Toth. Did pretty well. over the course of the 2 heats as well as qualifying. Fabrizio Bazzitti with that last minute win come out to 2nd place, and Jason Rezende, really unfortunate P1 result, but still managing a P3 spot, so not too shabby altogether. Pedrodin in P4, Ralph Benitez in P5, Herad Sadeni in P6, Kyle Valero sharing P7 with Roberto Frizer, Evandro Dantas and Simon Demori will be rounding out the top 10 for AMX 5.
So there we go, folks. A great job from all of our drivers out there today. And a quick preview for tomorrow's race. We're going to be back out AMX 10, where we're continuing our TCR World Tour. Still keeping it here in the United States, but we're going to be heading it back over to Watkins Glen for an amazing, I think that's going to be one of the best TCR races in my opinion out at Watkins Glen, as well as heading back here for Daytona, hitting the road course this time in the TCR. So also a bit of a preview, possibly only a few months away from the Roar Before the 24. A lot of these TCR drivers will be competing, I know, in these special events as well. But that will be all for us today. Again, signing out for AMX, I am Kevin alongside Damon, and we will see you all next time.